losing, it doesn't matter.
And yeah, we have a special meeting this evening in addition to our normal agenda. It's our end-of-year reorganization. And we will, before I should have even started talking, I would like to introduce Victor, who will explain our Spanish language interpretation. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, all honorable City Council members, Mr. City Manager, City Attorney, and all City staff. Muy buenas noches. Le queremos dejar saber a todos ustedes que esta reunión será interpretada al español. Para poder acceder el canal de audio, haga usted clic en lo que es el botón de interpretación, que es un icono del globo terráqueo o un mundo en su barra de tareas de Zoom. Después aparecerá un menú y entonces usted podrá seleccionar el idioma en español. Y aparte de eso, si usted está en el teléfono, presione la estrella 9 para poder alzar la mano y estrella 6 para silenciar y desilenciar su micrófono. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Appreciate that. We'll start with a roll call.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Here.
Councilmember Penrose,
Here.
Councilmember Rohraback,
Here.
Vice Mayor Reddick,
Here.
Mayor Brownstone.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, everybody. We will start our evening with public forum. And tonight, just to, in terms of how I'll organize things this evening, during public forum, people can make comments about anything that's not on the agenda. In addition, they can make comments on things that are on consent calendar, and it's about the consent calendar. We will be pulling a few items from the consent calendar this evening. And those will include, I believe, in addition to the electrification ordinance, I believe we're also pulling the electrical vehicle ordinance. Is that right? Both those? We've had requests, I think. So what we're going to do is ask that if you want to make comments, public comments, there will be time when we pull those items from the consent calendar, which will happen shortly after we do a couple of presentations, and we'll get into our consent calendar a little bit later. So I'm just asking that you hold your remarks if it's about the electrification ordinance or the electric vehicle ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yeah.
think somebody wanted to pull the waste ordinance too.
You know, maybe it was the waste ordinance and not the electrical vehicle. Now that I think about it, I think you're right. Yeah, thank you for that correction, Vice Mayor Reddick. So, so yeah, hold your comments on that, but any comments on anything else that is not agendized. People can make some comments now. So let's have a look. So we'll open up the public forum. I see a couple of hands raised. We'll see if anyone else. Let's give it another few seconds.
I see 3, Mayor.
I see 3. Okay, so let's go with those 3, and we'll give 3 minutes per each person.
Okay, our first speaker is Kathy Hamilton. Kathy, you have 3 minutes.
I think I may have made a mistake. I am here on the electrification issue.
Yeah, so I will ask that you wait till we pull that item. That's fine, no worries.
My first
No
one
problem.
on this.
No, appreciate you letting us know. Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll bring you on when we get to that. Thank you. Next speaker.
HMB Bridge, you have 3 minutes.
Man, I still got to change that. I feel like it's Christmas, 3 minutes. First, I want to thank Robert. I know we've had our issues over the year, but you did a fantastic job as mayor, and it was not an easy year to be mayor. So as you prepare to going to a quieter place. I wish you well, and I hope it goes as well as this past year. I'm speaking tonight in follow-up to the vaccination issue that was brought to the last meeting for discussion and potential action, and I'm seeking clarification, and I realize I can't get that, so I'm asking anyone on the council to follow with a question perhaps for the city attorney. At that meeting, and it's tough to reconstruct now because of some unfortunately missing video, nonetheless, Councilman Rarbeck made the following motion. He moved to make it the policy of Half Moon Bay that all contractors and employees who work for the city must be fully vaccinated if they are working inside city limits. Cut to the paper or an article that followed later in the week, and that had changed. Instead of it being the policy, it had changed to the decision allows city staff to draft a policy that will be reviewed by workers' unions and the council. And that's attributed to City Manager Bob Nisbet. Harvey made a motion that was very specific. It was seconded immediately by Dr. Penrose, who also offered a comment that I thought was brilliant, which is this is not a political decision. It is a moral and ethical one made on behalf of our community. 4 members voted for that to be the policy of Half Moon Bay, period, full stop. They didn't vote to send the staff off on a project to come back in a month or 2 or 3. They didn't vote to give unions the authority to control our policy in Half Moon Bay. The 5 of you control that policy. As you did, you exercised that policy. So my question is a simple one. Is it at this moment the policy of the city of Half Moon Bay that all contractors and employees who work for the city must be fully vaccinated if they are working inside city limits or not? And if not, why not? Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. We'll take the other 2 comments, and then Catherine, maybe you'd like to respond, or did you want to respond now? Or
I'd be happy to give a brief response to what all is allowed in the Brown Act. Staff understands that direction. We are, trying to comply with all of our legal obligations in terms of our labor negotiations. So I do anticipate that this item will come back following the meet and confer process with our unions.
Great. Thank you for the clarification, Catherine. Okay, next speaker.
Next speaker is Crystalline Geet. Crystalline, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if we'd be allowed to have comment after the reorganization. So just in case, I wanted to proactively say thank you this year for council. It's been a really great year in just the amount of collaboration everybody's been able to do, and a huge appreciation to Mayor Brownstone. It's really nice having a mayor at the head that is level-headed and keeps things clear and clearly weighs out decisions and discussions thoughtfully. And it really makes these meetings a joy. And all of the council members are amazing in your own way. And together you guys are just pretty freaking awesome. So I'm glad that you're all sticking around, and the reorganization is really, kind of just to give somebody else a chance at the head. But you guys are awesome and great, and really look forward to another year of greatness. And thank you again for everything you do.
Thank you for your kind remarks, Crystalline, and I'll be sure and replay that every morning when I'm not feeling good. Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Mary Bernier.
Hi, thank you very, very much. So I'm coming in, flying in by the seat of my pants. So I'd like to make a few comments about the Public Works. The first one is thanking them so much for stopping that flooding that happened on the westbound, especially side of Highway 92 last Monday, because it was pretty scary. And I'm sure you're familiar with the emergency preparedness information on the website, Prepare for Flooding. They talk about if there's just 6 inches of water, I'm quoting, will reach the bottom of most passenger cars and will cause the loss of control or stalling, and a foot of water will float most vehicles. Two of the assistant librarians found themselves caught, one of them at 9:30 in the morning, heading to the library. It opens at 10. The second one at 9:45. The first one took pictures of the flooding, and they were a lot more dramatic than what CAL FIRE put up an hour later that was in the Half Moon Bay Review. And the second one, the water came up to his hood. He's repeated that several times. I don't understand how that could be, but he has a small sedan coupe, he said. Anyway, that would be a lot more than the 6 inches of water that would cause the loss of control. It seems that there must be somebody in charge when we know an atmospheric river is on its way to hit us, and we know what day and time it's going to get, that a person could be out there, if not preventing Torrecitos Creek or whichever river, whatever water created that terrible flood Monday morning, but to kind of prepare for it, at least have somebody out there watching to see if indeed it was going to be a problem. It's like I was calling, Highway Patrol says they won't come out unless somebody from the sheriff's calls them. The sheriffs weren't out there, obviously, Monday morning early to see if it was going to be a problem. And it just seems like we must have the infrastructure to do something about that before the flooding happens and it's way more than 6 inches, which, I mean, it's a miracle that nobody was hurt. The guy who was coming in at 10:45 to the library said that there was a pickup that was smoking and it overheated, and the guy looked really scared, and somehow he moved his pickup around so that it was facing eastbound on 92. But all of that could have been really a lot more serious. So I'm just hoping that there'd be a way of preventing something like that before it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank
Next
you.
speaker is Aisha.
Yes, Aisha, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. So thank you so much. Crystalline inspired me to give my comments ahead of the reorganization too, because I don't know what your protocol will be for allowing speakers after. So I also want to echo everybody's comments about Mayor Brownstone. You've been such a pleasure to work with, and also such a balanced perspective on the council. Always willing to listen to other people's input and weigh the pro and the con, and in the end, make very informed decisions. So we'll miss that perspective, and very happy that you're not going to be leaving us completely and still be on the council, but want to thank you for your service. Really, not only on my behalf, but on behalf of Coastside Family Seeking Action and everybody that's interacted with you. Thank you so much for that. And welcome, I guess, Mayor Ruddock in a few minutes or in an hour or so. It's great to have your perspective too on the council. I know we haven't always had the same positions with Coastside Family Seeking Action. We've had some differences as well. So looking forward to seeing what you bring. It's really great to see a woman at the helm. So I'm very inspired by that, and look forward to seeing what the year ahead brings. The final thing I wanted to say, I wanted to echo the comments of the last speaker about safety. I happened to be out and about in San Mateo on one of the nights where 92 was closed, and I was rerouted to Trinita Creeks. And I had no idea what that road was like. I had never taken it before. It was dark. And it was like an hour of driving, like in the middle of nowhere, in the woods. And any minute, I felt like I was going to fall in a ravine, any minute, you know. And then there was like almost nobody there. And I just wished there had been some signage, you know, that would have prevented me from taking that road, because it definitely was not safe at that point. And I just thought of, like, you know, after I left and I hit Highway 1, I was like, oh my God, there are still people out there. And it started raining even more. So I know I already communicated this to the city manager and the deputy city manager, and they had some really good ideas. And I really just want to emphasize taking action on that and communicating to whoever is responsible for those signages and for rerouting people, so that this doesn't happen again, because it's a matter of death or life. potentially. So it's really important that it gets to the right people. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Aisha.
And that concludes public comment, Mayor.
Great. So now close public forum. Now I should mention a little process piece in terms of how we select the next mayor. There is actually a process. And so I just want to make sure that, it's never a fait accompli. We nominate people and we vote, and then we'll know who the next mayor is. So just want to sure everyone understands that we got an agenda, we have a process. So thank you. And that concludes public forum. And now I believe you get to watch a video with me narrating of the state of the city. Is that right? Is that what we're showing next?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we have put together a video this year for the 2021 State of the City Address, and PCT will actually play that video for everyone on this meeting to watch. And following the meeting, it will be available on our website and social media tomorrow for anyone who missed it.
Great, thank you.
Jordan, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Robert Brownstone, Mayor of Half Moon Bay. And on behalf of myself and my colleagues on the City Council, I welcome you to the annual State of the City Address. This year, we're trying a new format, a pre-recorded State of the City Address that everyone can review at their convenience. The theme of this State of the City Address is recovery. Recovery includes all the ongoing efforts to recover after the last 2 years living through a pandemic that has impacted our businesses, our ability to deliver services, and most importantly, that has impacted all of us, our families, and our neighbors. In our effort to gather public input and all your thoughts and ideas about what issues and priorities we should be focusing on for the fiscal year, the City Council held 2 listening sessions and a priority-setting public workshop earlier this year. We listened, and the City Council used your extensive feedback and input to identify 5 priorities for fiscal year 2021 through 2022. They were affordable housing, public health, safety and emergency preparation, community climate resilience and sustainability, economic recovery and development, and redistricting. All of these priorities reflect our theme of recovery, and they help strengthen our shared foundational values around working together to provide a strong and sustainable culture of inclusion and belonging. Our first priority, affordable housing. We are in the midst of updating the housing element of our general plan, which will facilitate the development of affordable housing in our community. Right now, we're studying numerous housing opportunity sites in the city and gaining a better understanding of the challenges many residents face with housing insecurity. We passed the accessory dwelling unit ordinance intended to increase housing stock and to help families provide housing for their multi-generational households. Other key achievements in this priority area include passing the short-term rental ordinance and updating the local coastal land use plan, which was certified by the Coastal Commission in April and was subsequently honored by the California chapter of the American Planning Association with an award of merit for hard-won victories. This plan will lay the blueprint for the future of housing and development in the city of Half Moon Bay, ensuring protection of our beautiful coastside and our shared vision around maintaining the small town character of our community. Regarding our second priority, public health safety and emergency preparation, all elements of our public health safety and emergency preparation priority are critical, including road safety and traffic calming efforts, sewer main replacements, pedestrian pathways, and law enforcement. I'd like to take a moment to focus on one in particular: our research, outreach, and engagement around public safety, law enforcement, and the use of force in policing. In light of the nationwide issues around law enforcement, we've taken several key steps. We hosted focus groups and a city council listening session to hear directly from you and to gain a better understanding of how these issues affect the people here in our community. We engaged with the Stanford University Criminal Justice Center and CAHOOTS, which stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets, to learn from their experiences in addressing these issues. We also adopted the Yanira Serrano Presente program, designed to help increase transparency and trust between law enforcement and the community, and to reduce the fear and apprehension that many community members experience when engaging with law enforcement. The council directed staff to pursue a mental health community response program as an alternative to armed law enforcement response, with a pilot program to begin in early 2022 with El Centro de Libertad. We established a non-emergency public safety feedback process for people to directly and anonymously report any concerns and incidents regarding law enforcement. Our efforts to support community policing and to facilitate greater trust between law enforcement and all the people they serve and protect are crucial to ensuring the health, safety, and quality of life in our community, and will be an ongoing effort. I encourage you to visit our webpage to learn more about what we're doing and to continue contributing your feedback and ideas. Regarding our third priority, community climate resilience and sustainability, the effects of climate change are more evident today than ever before. We are seeing this through increased wildfires, storms, and flooding, which is why it's more important now than ever to take action. It's our responsibility, both the city and the community, to take measures now to be more resilient and sustainable, and to put into place policies and actions that will protect the future for ourselves and our families. As part of our community climate resilience and sustainability priority, we're implementing a building electrification ordinance to address the use of propane and natural gas. Nearly half of Half Moon Bay's greenhouse gas emissions come from energy use in buildings, with 80% of those emissions generated from fuel gas-powered energy. To reduce that huge carbon footprint, this ordinance will do the following: require all new building construction to be electric only. It will require that various remodels of existing buildings include electrification requirements. Require that fuel gas connections are capped or decommissioned in existing buildings by 2045. Other actions we're taking towards sustainability include starting a beverage container redemption center, hosting community recycling events, and we became the first city in the county to implement a disposable foodware ordinance, which encourages reusables and ensures the use of compostable foodware instead of plastics. And we've also enhanced our outdoor spaces by refurbishing Frenchman's Creek Park, creating a new gateway to Poplar Beach's Blufftop Park, starting a master planning process for the unimproved Magnolia Park Smith Field, expanding use of the Abundant Grace Coastside Worker Coastal Cleanup Team. Also, through the efforts of City Council and our terrific staff, Assemblyman Mark Berman secured $4.75 million from the state's budget for major renovations and improvements to Half Moon Bay's John L. Carter Memorial Park. Staff is currently working on hiring a construction firm for this project, and we hope to break ground this spring. Our fourth priority, economic recovery and development. This year, City Council made a strategic investment in a regional planning process that would help the coastside economy recover from the pandemic and chart the course toward a more equitable, vibrant, and resilient future. The Coastside Recovery Initiative has leveraged the combined talents of many residents, organizations, and subject matter experts. A recovery task force made up of 17 coastsiders worked over 5 months across 4 focus areas and produced 15 recommendations, ranging from strategies to spur economic growth, job creation, and entrepreneurship, and including strategies that would expand higher education and vocational opportunities that recognize our agricultural lands, open spaces, and natural environment as economic assets. The COVID-19 pandemic has generated once-in-a-lifetime challenges and opportunities. Now is the time to shape the future we want and an economy that works for all. The Downtown Parklet program is in development to establish the rules and processes for creating safe and attractive outdoor rooms on the street, adding to the vibrancy and atmosphere of our downtown businesses. And with a focus on the workers in our community, the city also implemented a local minimum wage of $15 per hour and includes annual cost of living increases. Our fifth priority is redistricting. The city is currently engaged in the 2021 City Council redistricting process. This is important to ensure that our council districts accurately represent the population and demographics of our community based on the 2020 census. These districts are in place to provide the best opportunity for fair, equitable representation of the various segments of our community on the City Council. Many community members are involved in this process to draw new council district boundaries through the Redistricting Advisory Committee, an extensive community outreach including surveys, meetings, a redistricting webpage, and information tables at public events. All of these initiatives, priorities, and actions that I've mentioned are just the tip of the iceberg. There continues to be a great ongoing effort toward maintaining and improving our community and creating opportunities for the people who live here. And I ask you to visit our hmbcity.org website and click on State of the City 2021 for more details. Thank you for allowing me to share our annual State of the City report, and thank all of you for doing your part every day to help Half Moon Bay be the best place for all of us to live, work, and play.
I'm Crystalline Geet, the President and CEO of the Half Moon Bay Coastside Chamber of Commerce. And 2021 has been an amazing year. And one project that you heard from Mayor Brownstone that we were a vital piece of and really encompassed a lot of our work in 2021 was the Coastside Recovery Initiative. That was the brainchild through the city and the county and the chamber coming together, trying to figure out exactly how we can best help our community after and through the pandemic. And through a lot of meetings and collaborations and community involvement, we were able to put together the Recovery Initiative, which consisted of an executive team as well as 17 locals comprised of a task force, which broke down into smaller groups and really focused on different aspects of our community, from eco to vibrancy to innovation. And the chamber has really been a large part of that process and really taking in that information to then evolve what we are doing to take on that body of work and make sure that our future services meet the needs of our current community. So this whole process of the Coastside Recovery Initiative has really been eye-opening, exploratory process with all of the major stakeholders on the coastside. And we have just been so excited to be a part of that process and really look forward to carrying it forward for the next 5 to 10 years and just continuing to have milestone after milestone, win after win of bringing our community to the next positive place in its evolution. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the state of the library during this year of recovery. Despite our challenges, we proved to be a nimble organization that allowed us to quickly respond and provide much-needed services. Staff ingenuity and thoughtful mobilization resulted in many new and reimagined services. The year started with online services, grab-and-go bundles, curbside pickup, and walk-up service. In April, we reopened our doors and added 3 days of in-person express service. In August, we brought back 6 days of service, including evening hours to lines of library enthusiasts. Our commitment to closing the digital divide was stronger than ever. We increased the number of Wi-Fi hotspots to keep our community connected. The Friends of the Library provided significant funding to support this initiative. Staff provided one-on-one tech support via Zoom. Our workforce development programs reached hundreds of people, and we expanded our ESL services. We are currently offering in-person tech support, and our literacy tutors and students are once again meeting at the library. Veterans programs returned with visits by the VA medical van. Virtual events continue to be popular as staff innovated ways to educate and entertain. Online resources increased in popularity as we expanded our selections. Our microfilm copies of the Half Moon Bay Review are now available online. Thank you to the Review for allowing us to make their news available. Our meal program switched to a grab-and-go service, and we distributed over 18,000 free meals. The Friends of the Library generously supported funding our adult meals. Summer was a bit different this year. We developed Library Explorers and in-library camp, offered our Families Create, Take, and Make program, gave away over 7,000 free books, and offered our Big Lift Inspiring Summers program at Pescadero and Hatch elementary schools. In-person story times returned in September, as well as monthly STEAM programs, passive after-school programming, and in-person school visits. We are looking forward to safely expanding our programming and hours in the new year. It has been a tremendous year of steady progress and recovery. I would like to thank the library staff for their amazing work, Friends of the Half Moon Bay Library for their dedication and advocacy, city staff and council for their ongoing support, and our wonderful Coastside residents that are always such a pleasure to serve.
Thank you to Mayor Brownstone and Crystalline Gee and Annie Malley for your participation in our State of the City, and a very special thanks to Colleen Latier, her Communications Program Manager, and to PCT for organizing and producing that video. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And I'll just point out, and in doing that video, that beautiful looking Zoom background is actually a live background from Frenchman's Creek Park. We recorded live. And I was looking at that, I said, wow, that really looks like a great Zoom background. So, but actually, no, we recorded live. We luckily had nice weather. And yes, Colleen Latier helped organize everything. And so thanks to her. So I'm now going to make my remarks by outgoing mayor. This is part of our city council reorganization. And I'm going to keep my remarks very brief, especially after just delivering a 17-minute pre-recorded State of the City presentation. I'm going to keep it brief. In thinking about my outgoing remarks as mayor last couple of days, a common theme of thanks and gratitude surfaced for me. And that was a theme that this is a city that leads and acts with open hearts and minds. And for me, the city of Half Moon Bay represents a collective of open hearts and minds, all working towards the same goal of making this a good place for everyone to live, work, and play. It's what connects us. And without that connection, we really couldn't have gotten through the last 2 years of a harrowing pandemic. It's that sense of connection that I believe enabled us to successfully establish and work with the county to establish the only homeless shelter on the coast. And so I thank the community for keeping their hearts and minds open to help some of the most helpless and underserved folks in the community. And I thank the countless volunteers and nonprofits who work so many long hours to help distribute food and essential care to those who struggled most through this pandemic. And there's so many groups, there's too many groups to mention, but I know as a council, we made special efforts to financially support a number of these organizations over the last 2 years. And I'm really proud of our council to vote to make available hundreds of thousands of dollars to help those organizations, and organizations that many of you are familiar with: Coastside Hope, Senior Coastsiders, Abundant Grace, ALICE. And I thank all the volunteers and all the parents and all the service organizations who help students, service organizations, volunteer service organizations like Rotary Club, Odd Fellows, to name a few, all the faith organizations that come together in our hours of need. So I thank you all for your generous hearts and minds that give me great hope for our future. Thank you. And now I will begin the process. Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Brownstone, before we jump into nominations, we do have some local representatives in the meeting who would like to give some remarks to you. So at this time, if anyone has any comments for our outgoing mayor, please raise your hand, and we will start with Katrina Rill from Jackie Spears' office. Katrina?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
And see me? Okay, wonderful. Well, Mayor Brownstone, members of the council, members of the staff, it's wonderful to see you, even if not in reality. On behalf of Congresswoman Spear, I would like to thank you for your service. It certainly was not an easy year, just like the year before, and you probably didn't predict that it was going to be just as difficult as it was. I certainly hope it's going to be easier for the mayor for the next year, when that mayor gets elected. I just wanted to share my appreciation for our collaboration with Half Moon Bay. As you know, the Congresswoman loves the coast, loves to visit, loves to work with all of you. And I look very, very much forward to continuing one more year of work before the Congresswoman is not going to be in office anymore. And hopefully I will see some of you in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Katrina. We also have Joan Dentler from Senator Becker's office.
Thank you, Jessica. And thank you, Mayor Brownstone and council and city staff for a terrific year. I know that Senator Becker did call Mayor Brownstone earlier to express his gratitude for a wonderful year. And I'm so glad that the two of you got to meet earlier down at Half Moon Bay Brewery, along with some other coastside leaders. And we hope to keep that collaboration going throughout the next year under the new mayor's leadership. And I think you summed it up well when you did say that Half Moon Bay truly is a collective of hearts and open hearts and minds. And as a non-coastside resident, but living very close, I can personally say that I certainly agree with that. And I am a frequent visitor to your beautiful city, and I'm proud to be able to work for Senator Becker and help represent your city and all of the great work that you've done, Mayor Brownstone, and that the council will continue to do next year. And I look forward to continuing our work together. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I'm glad that you and the senator had a chance to chat earlier. And I know that he'll be reaching out to the new mayor very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. And thank you to the senator. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Leslie Bolbeck from Assemblymember Berman's office.
Good evening. My name's Leslie Bulbuck, and I'm a senior field representative for Assemblymember Berman. And he's unable to make this evening's meeting, but asked me to be here to give thanks to each of you as we end the year 2021, and to offer his heartfelt congratulations and many thanks to outgoing Mayor Brownstone. Your calm and capable service on behalf of the Half Moon Bay community has been very, very much appreciated. Serving as an elected representative can be a challenging and thankless job, and serving during a global pandemic surely added additional challenges onto your plate. So thank you so much for just giving your heart and soul to the city of Half Moon Bay, which is probably, I'm not going to say it's my favorite place in the district, but it's pretty much my favorite place in the district. So I look forward to continuing the work with you as you remain as a council member, and thank you so much for your service to this city.
Thank you, Leslie, for your kind words, and we look forward to continuing to work with you at Assemblyman Berman. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie. And before we move on, Mayor Brownstone, I'm going to share my screen, and Vice Mayor Reddick has a few words to share.
Mayor Brownstone, it kind of hurts me to pass along this gavel because I think you have done a wonderful job on behalf of the council and the city here in Half Moon Bay. I could not improve upon anything you said about the past year. I think you've been remarkable in your calmness, your even-handedness, your openness. I felt like I had a very open collaboration with you. I felt like I understood where you were coming from, that you were, upfront. It's been a real pleasure. And I'm glad you're still going to be around. And I'll need your help. I'll need all of your help if I do move on to be mayor. But in any case, it's been a great year. And I look forward to your ideas and your input, as does the entire council. There are a lot of things to do. Probably not much is going to change, and you've been a star. So thank you. This gavel goes to you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Reddick. I'm honored to receive it. Appreciate it. All right.
Turn it back to you, Mayor Brownstone.
Thank you. So we will now begin our reorganization process. by taking nominations for mayor. And I will begin. I'm still mayor, so I can do that. And I would like to begin by nominating Vice Mayor Ruddick to be our next mayor. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Romack. And we will take a vote.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose,
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ruddick,
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Now I will pass.
I would like, initially I asked Jessica if I was supposed to drag and drop that gavel on your video presentation.
That's right.
But no. I would like to nominate Deborah Penrose to be vice mayor in 2022.
Second.
Second, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose, Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Mayor Ruddick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
Congratulations to you both.
Thank you. So I'm going to make a few remarks tonight about something that's become important to me in the last couple of years. And honestly, I don't envision any of our priorities changing. They're all very important. I don't know that anything is going to change them. But there's an issue that I think I'd like to highlight for us. And just as we go through our year, talk about this issue with the public, perhaps have speakers in to talk about it, support the issue during our community grant program, but it's mental health. And I'm wearing green tonight that symbolizes mental health awareness. And I just want to go over some data that I find, quite astonishing. We go through our city life and our individual lives, our public lives, and everything, seems to be, going the same, business as usual. But for many of us, that's not the case, in our own homes and in our places of work. And it's important to recognize that. The toll of the pandemic has been great, and mental health challenges are at crisis levels in our county. They cut across race, gender, ethnic, and even economic differences, and they cannot be addressed by one city alone. I'm pleased to begin my term as mayor by joining the San Mateo County Mayor's Mental Health Initiative, a countywide effort to raise awareness and drive change that will help our residents truly recover from the mental health impacts of this pandemic. This initiative seeks to raise awareness regarding resources available to address mental health needs, as well as increase access to mental health resources and therapy options in our community. I'm proud to join 11 other incoming mayors in this initiative and look forward to taking significant steps in the coming year to address this in our community. So just a little bit of data. The COVID-19 pandemic redoubled the need to focus on the mental health needs of our communities. On October 19th, 2021, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and Children's Hospital Association declared a national emergency in children's mental health. The declaration notes that while childhood mental health concerns were steadily increasing prior to the pandemic has intensified this crisis across the country. The CDC reported in April that during August 2020 to February 2021, the percentage of adults with recent symptoms of an anxiety or depressive disorder increased from 36% to 42%. And the percentage of those reporting an unmet mental health care need increased from 9% to 12%. Increases were targeted among adults aged 18 to 29 years and those with less than a high school education. Some local data. This summer, the Daly City Youth Health Center more than doubled their therapist staff, and within 30 days, their caseloads were full. As of May this year, One Life Counseling Center in San Carlos saw a 386% increase in need for mental health services over the previous year. One organization reported that in the summer of this year, within a 25-mile radius of Palo Alto, there were 600 open clinician positions open. And then just in the last week, the New York Times had a big front page article where they had done a survey of mental health practitioners in this country. I just want to read some quotes from therapists. The pandemic has functioned like a magnifying glass for vulnerabilities, said Gabriella Schenkman, a licensed clinical social worker in Ohio who specializes in serving the Latino community there. And while the pandemic has been polarizing, the analysis by the New York Times found that higher demands for therapy are happening in every region and at similar rates in red and blue states. Another quote, even if some clients don't recognize certain scientific aspects of the pandemic, they're still feeling the isolation and separation, said Nathan Staley, a licensed professional counselor. Political disagreements are increasingly a source of distress. Another one said, it might be some years before we have some sense of normalcy in the mental health for our children. So this is a very serious issue. The city is already, as Robert mentioned, putting some resources into mental health response. Our deputy city manager has been meeting with mental health providers to find out various needs. You know, I think we probably want to take a closer look and build on that where we can. We're not a social services or mental health services agency, but we, I think, can do things to connect people to services, to understand what those services are, and continue networking with the variety of groups who are besieged with these issues. So that's an important one for me this year. But I think, you know, given that the COVID year is probably not going to lighten up anytime soon because of Omicron, all the things Robert talked about are still true. And the idea of care and connection and open hearts and minds are more important than ever before. And, you know, I think we want to be careful in how we, you know, speak with each other, the tones of our voices, things as simple as that. You know, not overloading our staff, being sensitive to their needs as well as our own is going to be really important. So I just want to say, I'm really, you know, it's really important to me to continue the care and connection that this council has brought to this community in the past year and that Robert so well articulated. And I look forward to our priority setting coming in February or March. I think we're going to have to look at recycled water. But in any case, I'm honored to serve as your mayor. I look forward to working with all of you. I'm about to retire. To Aisha Barrow, we might not always agree, but it's okay to disagree. As anybody knows who actually calls me or emails me, I'm always available and always accessible and happy to talk. And I offer that to anyone. So please take advantage of it. And I'll pass this to Deborah to make some remarks.
Well, you put it all so very well, and Robert said it so well before you. I'm looking forward to supporting you and to being a good vice mayor. I'm very happy to stay on council. I love being on council. I think the work we do is hard, but it's the challenges are paid back by the rewards. We've been able to do some wonderful things this past year, and I look forward to this next year when we do even more wonderful things because our community needs it and because our community asks for it. So I hope we can continue to be responsive to the community and to keep them as fully engaged as we've gotten them during this past year. I don't think there has ever been a year where we've had more community involvement, volunteers who are actually serving on committees and doing hard, good work for Half Moon Bay. So hear, hear. And thank you, staff, for everything you've done this past year. I look forward to working with you this next year.
Would either Councilmember Jimenez or Councilmember Harvey like to make any remarks about Robert or about the year ahead?
I'll be very brief. I'm looking forward to accomplishing a lot of the goals that we have set for ourselves. It's going to be a challenging year, there's no doubt. But I'm optimistic that if we work together, we can actually accomplish some very good things. So I'm looking forward to the new mayor, the new vice mayor. I hope our council continues to advocate for what our community needs. So thank you both.
Well, Mayor Brownstone, thank you. Today marks 1 year of me being part of City Council. And you know, all of you is one of my many reasons why I decided to run for City Council. And it's been an excellent experience for me. I've learned a lot from all of you. Robert, we've had a lot of conversations about our community, and you are an inspiration, you know, for me to continue to do the work that I do. As you know, I really enjoy, you know, what I do here in our community. And in seeing you there as the mayor, you know, has really gave me new paths, you know, to travel. I see how you were able to address the community in your concerns for a lot of things, you know, especially, you know, conversations we had about equity. You know, as you know, that it is very important for me, you know, that we implement equity in our community. So it's been a learning year, you know, from all of you. I'm very grateful with you, all of you, you know, your teachings, your guidance, and as well from all the rest for the City Council, and looking forward to excellent, you know, an excellent year. You know, new Mayor Reddick, Vice Mayor Penrose. You know, looking forward to a lot of great things. You know, as Robert, you know, read the priorities for our city. You know, from the City Council. You know, I keep them very dear to my heart. As you know, a lot of the work that I do is thinking of those priorities that we have. So thank you to all of you, city staff, you know, for an excellent year. You know, it's been a learning, you know, I learned a lot. But I know it's opened also a lot of doors for, you know, members in our community. So I want to thank you all, and looking forward to an excellent year, 2022. Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is a special presentation to the Coastside Jewish community, their 30th anniversary. Jessica, should I just read from our proclamation?
That or Matthew will introduce the item.
Matthew, could you introduce the item, please?
I would be happy to. And before we do that, I want to make sure I promote a couple of special guests to panelists. You'll see already on the screen Rabbi Moshe Hain, who is the local rabbi, and the president of the Coastside Jewish community, Sharon Turner. Welcome. Glad you can join us. And as I think most people know, the Coastside Jewish community is celebrating its 30th anniversary of serving Coastside residents, obviously geared towards serving our Jewish residents, but I think you'll find that they are very involved in making sure that all residents of our community, especially those that are marginalized or underrepresented, are looked after and protected. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to honor them tonight with a special proclamation. And I don't think they know this, but we also have received certificates of recognition from from Jackie Spears' office, as well as all of our state representatives, and a resolution from the County Board of Supervisors. So it's a special evening. And with that, I'll turn the time over to you, Mayor Ruddick, to share some of the thoughts in the proclamation. And then at the end, I'll just share my screen briefly and show a picture of those certificates that we've received.
So we are thrilled this evening to honor the Coastside Jewish community with a proclamation celebrating its 30th anniversary. Members of the Jewish community have made significant contributions to the Coastside ever since the Levy brothers opened their department store in downtown Half Moon Bay in 1872. And since then, there have been many other Jewish business owners, civic leaders, and residents who have helped our city become what it is today. And some of them are on the city council. Coastside Jewish Community was initially founded by Leslie Sachs Williams after moving from Berkeley to the Coastside in 1989. Hoping to find others with whom she could celebrate Jewish holidays and provide a religious and cultural education for her daughter Lauren and other children, she approached people in the ethnic food aisle at Safeway, buying matzah and Hanukkah candles and anyone she met who looked Jewish or had a Jewish sounding name. By 1991, she reached out to them and also placed an ad in the Half Moon Bay Review for the first Coastside Hanukkah party. 6 years later, in 1997, Coastside Jewish Community formed a board of directors, produced its first newsletter, began holding monthly services and charging dues. In 1998, High Holy Day services were conducted for the first time ever in Half Moon Bay, and a religious school for children was formed. 20 years ago, in 2001, a Torah was acquired and an ark was constructed to be housed at the Holy Family Episcopal Church. Several spiritual leaders served the community over the years, and many events, concerts, programs, and services have helped to bring people together ever since. Outside of any religious influence, Jewish values in general reflect an emphasis on caring for the stranger and defending the rights and dignity of the orphan, the widow, and other religious and cultural minorities. For this reason, many Jewish members of our community have taken leadership roles in governance, charitable causes, and social services. For all of these reasons, we recognize and celebrate the 30th anniversary of the formation of Coastside Jewish Community, which represents and carries forward the 150-year history and legacy of the Jewish people here in Half Moon Bay and throughout the Coastside. I'll turn it back to you, Matt.
Thank you. I'm going to briefly share my screen just to show the proclamation and the certificates. Can you see that? So this is a proclamation from the city, which will be signed later this week by the mayor. This is a certificate of recognition from Congresswoman Jackie Spears. This is a certificate of recognition from Senator Josh Becker, a certificate of recognition from Assemblymember Mark Berman, a certificate of recognition from Assemblymember Kevin Mullen, and a resolution from the County Board of Supervisors. And I think it just goes to show all of those representatives were very excited to be able to honor this great group. And once we receive all of the hard copies in the mail, we'll get these delivered to the rabbi, and it'll be a wonderful occasion. And with that, I'd like to invite the president of CJC. If you'd like to say a few words, Sharon.
Sure, everyone. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be recognized by all these entities and really just listening to the history again of CJC really just shows the power of what one person can do and then reach out to others to really bring people together who have commonalities. And here we are 30 years later. So I never personally met Leslie Sachs, but I'm very, very pleased and honored that she reached out and created a community that we're continuing today. So thank you so much. And just a shout out to Rabbi Moshe Hein, who's been with us for the last couple of years and has really done so much to expand our community. And we're super lucky to have him here on the Coast Side with us.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. It's a wonderful moment there, great history. The next item is Mid-Coast Communities Council update with Claire Touton. Claire, are you there?
I'm here. Want to lend my congratulations to my fellow CJC members and bring you up to date with the MCC. We had our elections at our last meeting. I will be the chair for the coming year, and Greg Diegues from Montero will be the vice chair. We had a presentation from the Coastside Economic Development Group that you mentioned earlier, which was well received, and we hope to be a more active part in that. But we're going to hit the ground running in January. We have a ton of stuff going on. The Connect the Coastside project is finally almost done, and we will have a final study session on that with geared toward making our final comments on it. The Resource Conservation District is leading a scoping study for what can be done for fire mitigation in El Granada. And there will be a joint MCC RCD sponsored listening session to get community input on that. I think that'll be a lively meeting. And that's probably going to be the 25th of January, although that's not for sure yet. We also will have our planning retreat. We also are planning probably a rather robust meeting to respond to some county planning ideas about blufftop uses in Moss Beach. And so we've got a lot of fairly meaty things to dive into just in the next few weeks. So we'll keep you informed about what happens. Any questions? I'm happy to entertain them.
Well, if you could send us the information on the wildfire listening session, that certainly would be helpful. And,
certainly.
And the council so far hasn't been super engaged in Connect the Coast Side. I don't know if the council would like to get an update on that item soon, but there's some interesting ideas. I guess we did have some sort of a brief presentation about it, but nothing in detail.
Yeah, I think that would be good because apparently you have your own processes in dealing with those issues, and we probably should coordinate them somehow. I would encourage everybody to sign up for our quarterly newsletter, which encapsulates the major things that we're looking at. And you can get a subscription to that newsletter by going to our website, which is midcoastcommunitycouncil.org. There's a thing there, you can click for it, and that'll give you a lot of updates. But I'll make sure you get some other information as well, Debbie.
Fabulous. Thanks, Claire.
Okay.
Well, Happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
The next item is Half Moon Bay Library annual presentation with Annie Malley. Do you want to introduce that, Matt? Bob?
I'd be happy to just provide a few words. For those of you that don't know, when you visit our amazing library over on Correa Street, you're participating in a service that's really collaborative. The city does not staff or manage that library. We are part of a joint powers authority that covers most of the cities in the county and the unincorporated areas, and is run by county staff. And having been in this job for a long time and worked in this career for a long time, I can say we have probably one of the most progressive and innovative library systems in the country. And we are really, really lucky. And our staff in Half Moon Bay at the library, and especially librarian Annie Malley, are so dedicated to serving the community. And they really go above and beyond, and they're great collaborators with our city staff, our rec staff. And we're just really, really lucky to have such great services here. And so the next time you're in the library, thank the library staff for all they do for our community. With that, I'll turn it over to Annie for her annual report.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mayor Ruddick and council members, for allowing me to speak about the San Mateo County Library's annual report. I do want to highlight the mental health resources. The library would love to partner with you on that initiative. We were one of the first libraries to offer the Calm app for free. So that is a resource that you can use at the library, as well as all of the books. So just going to provide you a little bit of background. So Matthew talked a little bit about it, the library. The library system was first established as a county-free library in 1912, and the Library Joint Powers Authority was formed in 1999. So today, our 13 libraries are part of a larger family offering transformative experiences, an inclusive sense of space, and an environment for learning. The unique diversity and complexity of those we serve inspire and drive our services. We continually assess the needs of our users to respond with thoughtfully designed programs and services that enrich and uplift our communities. Many of the highlights of the year were presented during the State of the City video, so I'll focus on our summer offerings. During the summer, we provided something for everyone. We opened our doors to in-person library visits 3 times a week. Our Families Create program provided books, kits, and activities that families could take home. We offered Library Explorers, an in-library summer camp for local families, and we expanded our award-winning Big Lift Inspiring Summers program to 5 weeks, serving youth throughout the county. Local students participated at Hatch and Pescadero, and so then I will let the students for themselves. So I have a short video.
I don't hear the sound.
So you weren't hearing the sound?
Wasn't hearing the sound, no. I don't know if it's me or... Did everybody else hear the sound?
I don't think the audio is coming through.
Okay. Okay, well, maybe I will jump ahead. Sorry about that.
And your screen's not sharing anymore either, Annie.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Well, it was a wonderful video about our summer learning that we offered at Hatch and Pescadero Elementary, as well as schools throughout the county. So the last thing that I wanted to share is that we have just found out a couple of weeks ago that we are now a 5-star library by Library Journal magazine. We are one of 3 5-star libraries in the state of California. So something that we're really very proud of. This honor is given to us as the commitment to serving our community at the highest level. And it's just such a pleasure serving our local coastside community. So if you have any questions for me, I would love to answer them.
Doing an amazing job at a very scary time. We thank you for all you do. And looking forward to learning more about your own, mental health programming or activities or ideas. Does anyone have questions for Annie? Okay, I don't see any, Annie. So thank you for the report, the excellent report. We love our library. We love our library staff. Thanks for taking the time with us this evening. Okay. So the next item is mayor's announcements of community activities and community service. I don't have anything to announce or report this evening. Do any other council members have anything they'd like to bring our attention to? Seeing none. Report out from recent closed session meetings. Catherine, do we have anything to report out at this time?
No, nothing to report out. The council has not met recently in closed session.
Okay. How about city manager updates to council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That sounds so good. It just rolls off the tongue a little easier, Madam Mayor. And members of council, members of the public, I do have one more acknowledgement, actually. This one's not on the script, so I hope I don't get in trouble. But it was stated earlier, but she just kind of glossed right over it, went really quick. So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. But our new mayor is retiring at the end of the year. She announced it very quickly in her opening remarks, and I just wanted to call attention to that. For those of you that don't know, she has worked in public service. So in addition to, I think, 4 terms on the city council, doing this in her spare time, she has also been a committed public servant, working for an agency that's an agency of the State Coastal Conservancy, for I think over 20 years. And for those of you that don't know, the state is a very large organization, and it has a lot of big departments and a lot of bureaucracy. But the organization that Debbie worked for, the State Coastal Conservancy, is not one of those. They're smaller, they're nimble, and they get a lot done, and they're a really cool department. I had experience with the Conservancy going way back before I met Debbie and worked here. And I remember back in the 90s, it seemed like when I got to know the staff there, they always seemed like the smartest staff, the funnest staff, and they had the best jobs. And they were very committed to what they did, protecting the coast and doing cool projects on the coast. So I'm sure Debbie's very proud of the career she's had there. It's a cool place to work. I'm sure she was involved in a lot of cool projects, protecting the coast side and doing cool things. And then, of course, our community has benefited from her job there. We've benefited from her expertise that she brings on environmental issues, coastal issues, Sacramento and her knowledge of what goes on up there, and ledge issues, and grants and money as well. So that has just really been a benefit to the community, I believe, the fact that Debbie has worked there all these years. So I want to congratulate you on your retirement and a distinguished career in public service. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear. I feel supported. I love it. Thank you. Okay, so do you have any other reports out tonight, Bob?
No, that is it.
That's it. Okay. So we are going to move on to the regular agenda. This is getting scary now. I'm out of practice. All right, so we're going to process the consent calendar. As you may remember from the beginning of the meeting, we will be pulling items 1H and items 1J. And could I entertain a motion from another council member approving the remainder of those items, adoption of those items? If not, I'll do it myself. Joaquin?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to put items 1H and 1J.
And would you like to also make a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent calendar?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the items 1B, warrants for month of November 2021. 1C, 2022 calendar of city council meetings. 1D, AB 1600 Report of Development Impact Fees for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021. Item 1E, Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021. Item 1F, Acceptance of the State of California Local Assistance Specified Grant for the John L. Carter Park Renovation Project, CIP number 0611. Item 1G, re-ratification of resolution to continue holding public meetings remotely, AB 361. And item 1I, electric vehicle and photovoltaic system, reach code for 2020 energy code, second reading.
So Councilmember Joaquin Jimenez, you missed item 1A, which is the warrants. Could you just add that little piece there?
Sorry. Item 1A, waive our reading for resolutions and ordinance.
Second.
Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Councilmember Rareback,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose,
Yes.
Mayor Reddick,
Yes.
motion carries.
I think since item 1J is a mandatory item, I'd like for us to hear that one first. Will John be reporting on that? A brief report?
Sure, Madam Mayor, we can give a brief report. You did conduct a first reading on this at your previous meeting, so I assume John will make it quite brief. But as mentioned, we did hear that some public members wanted to make some comments on this. So, John, do you want to give a quick summary of this item and what was heard at the first reading?
Sure. Thank you, and congratulations, Mayor and Vice Mayor. Again, this ordinance was initiated in response to Senate Bill 1383, which was adopted in 2016 by the California legislature and signed by the governor. This was designed to address more reduction of organics going into landfill, both in context of green waste, food scraps, but also food waste from larger industries and the like. So those were mandated and adopted in 2016. It took several years for Cal Recycle, the state agency responsible for implementing this, to come forward with direction and rules. And this is the package that's necessitated by those rules adopted by Cal Recycle. We took the opportunity in this process to clean up, modernize, and streamline the existing package of solid waste ordinances. Again, no significant changes to those other than just basically reflecting current practice, what we're doing, and making sure that they're consistent with state law rules and ultimately are consistent with our franchise agreement. So again, this is a mandatory obligation of the city. We were obligated by January 1 to have adopted an ordinance to implement provisions of 1383. Obviously, we're slightly behind on this one, just simply if we when the effective date of this ordinance, but the state has made it clear that they don't intend to enforce for at least the first year. They're asking and looking for us to, and all the other agencies and cities. So I'll end this as every city and every county agency is or has already done a similar ordinance. This ordinance, basically the package from 1383, came as a boilerplate document that's been modified. And thank you to the city attorney's office for helping us, and for Jennifer Chong for clearing through that. So that's the long and short of that item.
Okay, thank you, John. I see two hands raised. I suppose since there's only two, I'll give each of you 3 minutes at this time. Hopefully they're both wanting to talk on the waste item.
Hey, first speaker is Les Damon. Les, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm speaking about the electrification ordinance. When I read through it, there was a bunch of uncertainty.
Les, we're not on that item yet. So maybe just lower your hand for the time being. We're going to be getting to it soon.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next speaker is Paul Gregoria. Paul, you have 3 minutes.
I think I've unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good evening, council members. I'm certainly not going to use 3 minutes, but I just wanted to react briefly to John Dowdy's comments in response to my question of 2 weeks ago at your last meeting as to whether there was any data at all about the financial impact of this measure upon the citizens of Half Moon Bay. John was very frank in saying, no, he knew nothing about that impact. And there was no such data. And I would strongly recommend that you make an effort to gather some. Let's find out what, in fact, this is going to cost the citizens. And I guess since I have maybe another 15 seconds to spare, I would also recommend that when we see in the agenda the discussion of what's called fiscal impact by the city manager, that we perhaps consider broadening that to be financial impact. And if a measure like this one and several others has a widespread and significant non-trivial financial impact upon the residents, the taxpayers, that we note that and try to get some estimation of what the gross economic burden of the measure will be. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to comment.
Thank you, Paul. Any comments from council members? Questions? Okay, could we have a motion to approve that item?
Mayor, may I just 30 seconds on that?
Sure.
And I appreciate the speaker's comments, and let me just say what the greatest challenge of this is that while there are some mandates and dictates from the ordinance and from 1383 itself, there remain various options available to the community that are being worked through at this point, including working through and with the county Office of Sustainability to try to reduce cost and to combine our efforts among all the agencies of the county. And therefore, it is just impossible for us at this point in the implementation side to put a dollar figure on what the actual impact will be. We know there will be some impact of this, but that is one of the challenges of why we were not maybe as upfront about what those are, because we just don't know what they are until some of the details work through with these other partnerships that we're hoping to form. So just in response, thank you.
Thank you, John. Good information. Could we have a motion on item 1J, please?
I move that we waive the second reading and adopt an ordinance confirming without reenacting previous repeat of Chapter 7.20 entitled Garbage and Rubbish Disposal in its entirety, effective July 1, 2011. 2, repeating existing Chapter 7.21 entitled Mandatory Solid Waste Collection Service. 3, adopting a new Chapter 7.20 entitled Solid Waste Collection, Recycling, and Disposal. And 4, adopting a new Chapter 7.21 entitled Edible Food Recovery.
Second.
Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
And Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Before we hear the electrification item, I'm entertaining a break. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. What do people think they need at this point? We've been meeting for 90 minutes.
5 work.
5 minutes?
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Good. So I'm thinking, I'm going to give people a minute to raise their hand if you'd like to comment. I see some people are participating by phone. If you're participating by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand, and you hit *6 to mute and unmute yourselves. So that's *9 to raise your hand, *6 to mute and unmute. We'll give it a little bit longer. Let's see, 7 so far. That seems to be it, but I'm going to assign 2 minutes each. So Jessica, if you could start calling on members of the public.
Will do. Our first speaker is Jeff Hamilton. Jeff, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My wife, Kathy, and I have joined tonight to ask the council to reconsider the electrification proposal. We believe that great work is indeed urgently needed to address the effects of climate change and do not debate that at all. The efforts proposed here by the council are not, in our view, my view anyway, helpful and do not reflect the very real and very hard work that needs to be undertaken to address climate change. Pushing this measure here and now really only exacerbates the ongoing rancor and the distrust of administration on behalf of the public. Based on the comments and the discussion preceding this, I doubt that the conversion to electric can be the most important and most impactful work that this council can do for the citizens of Half Moon Bay. We ask you to find other meaningful ways to become involved in the effort to mitigate climate change. What you have here is locally burdensome, will return nothing, we fear. And I yield.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Our next speaker is Paul Grigoriev. Paul, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and good evening again, council members. My name is Paul Grigoriev, and I'm from Half Moon Bay. I believe the current draft of the electrification mandate, which you're in such a hurry to pass tonight, is considered by the overwhelming majority of the people of Half Moon Bay to be much too much and way too soon. Please stop trying to force our little community onto the front lines of the worldwide battle against climate change. Now that your constituents have begun to wake up to the costs that the mandate would impose upon us, costs that have been estimated in some cases to be more than $70,000 per homeowner, we are begging you not to proceed at this time. If you must force homeowners to convert from gas to electric, it would be far better if you didn't resort to takings of their property. Instead, you might decide to stay in step with the state, which has much deeper pockets and will probably come up with a way to compensate us for some of the conversion costs. Perhaps the state will also put the screws to PG&E and force it to make its failing infrastructure less dangerous and fire-prone, as well as more capable of meeting our growing power needs. Maybe the state can even force PG&E to stop refusing to buy back the energy homeowners store in their expensive battery walls. Instead of suddenly condemning our use of gas appliances to cook our meals, heat our water, and warm our homes, and as a threat to public health and safety based on incomplete and questionable data, you could finally decide to take action to solve the much more serious, widespread, and well-documented problems of rapidly rising rents and the unavailability of housing in Half Moon Bay, problems which, unless we act, will kill our city much faster and more effectively than climate change will. And I see I'm out of time. Thank you very much. It's a shame that the time is so short.
Thank you, Paul. Next speaker, please.
Les Damon, you have 2 minutes.
Mayor Ruddick, Council, thank you very much for the opportunity. As someone that has solar panels, obviously I am concerned about the environment. However, I know that the sun doesn't shine at night, wind doesn't always blow, and therefore having electric power is something that we're going to be short of. The problem is there's no other viable options right now. There might be by 2045, but putting any ordinance right now, I think, is something that's not viable and will be quite costly. Batteries are cost thousands of dollars, and I don't think most homeowners can do that. But I'd also like to ask the question. I read through the ordinance. I'm not sure whether I missed it, but I did not see any there for timing on people that might have to replace their furnaces. I saw items there about additions and so on, but there's no date on that. So perhaps you can clarify that for those people that are interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Les. Next speaker.
Terry Leahy, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Terry Leahy. I'm a resident of Half Moon Bay. Vote no. Amend this ordinance before passage. Remove the remodel requirements and change the ordinance to match the county's electrification ordinance or the state. We should not be the forerunners in this area. Our homes are in the same market as all coastside homes in the unincorporated area. Adding a remodel electrification requirement reduces the value of Half Moon Bay homes. This reduction in value will occur across the city, regardless of whether an owner wants to remodel. Most importantly, the benefits towards climate change of this ordinance is a drop in the bucket in the Bay Area's impact to climate change. This is an expensive plan with very low or negative reduction in greenhouse gases. For example, if people install electric baseboard heating, it makes greenhouse gases worse. A better plan would be to require 3-pane windows and insulation. Let's look at the efficiency of generation. Much of the electricity that one uses in an electric home comes from natural gas. Older natural gas electric generation plants are 40% efficient. Newer combined cycle natural gas electric generation plants are 60% efficient. Burning gas in a home furnace is 95% efficient. The only way it makes sense to go electric is if the electricity is running a heat pump and not resistive heating like in a baseboard heater. Saying that we are buying only renewable energy is a convenient fiction. The labeling of some fraction of the energy as renewable lets us provide a small subsidy for generators of renewable energy and for those consumers who use non-renewable energy. Some of the city council says we need to make a statement, but why would we impact people's home values and their ability to improve and enjoy their home for such a minor reduction? There are more effective ways to reduce greenhouse gases. This is ill-planned. Vote no on this ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Terry. Next speaker.
Matisse, you have 2 minutes. You are muted if you can unmute yourself.
There we go. Sorry about that. It was offside my screen. I'd like to implore you not to pass the ordinance for outlawing natural gas that is on the agenda today. This is a very radical step to implement with just 4 months of outreach and a few study sessions. For instance, for traffic studies, we've had years of studies and multiple years of traffic study sessions with no serious quick improvements. This is a far more complex issue, which I feel deserves greater scrutiny and community review than what we have had at the moment. And the proposed ordinance is based on the current controlled climate narrative that CO2 is the primary cause of climate change, which although it is repeated and often that is consensus, there's a significant amount of evidence and prominent climate scientists that argue that that may not be the case. Your ordinance also reflects this uncertainty, as noticed in section 1B, quoting, failure to address significantly reduced greenhouse gas emissions could result in a rise in sea level. That could put Half Moon Bay at risk, but that is not certain, and that's a lot of impact on the community for things that are still under debate and still need a little more review. I also sent a letter with a link to a consensus study of the impact of CO2 on real world data versus the models. And I hope that you guys had a chance to read that. It's very interesting read, and it points out some fallacies in these models that are being used currently. And again, with the question, do we do the mandate and shut down all of our natural gas in the city? This here puts an undue burden on the people that are both current and future residents. And it also flies in the face of maintaining low-cost housing for people in the future. It's going to drive costs up. And it's a policy that'll favor the haves and drive the have-nots out of the market and out of Half Moon Bay. So I hope that we can shelve this for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, Matisse. Next speaker, please.
Phone number ending in 5793. Oh.
Hello, this is Bruce Nagel. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little bit amazed at some of the people that have come up to speak. I mean, the mayor went through what some of the priorities were from the citizens that were looking at and addressing climate change as an important issue, and was third of the list of 5 of things that are there. So I'm curious to know what happened to those people and whether any of those are going to be showing up at the meeting. In regards to the severity of the climate change, the IPCC unanimously suggested that, you know, this is a period for code red was the label on this. So, you know, saying that we think that there's doubt in the fact of climate change and the effects seems missing some of the more important evidence that has come through, especially of late. You know, it seems that we're getting now to the point where we can even attribute storms or parts of storms to the amount of climate change. As an example, the hot weather that happened in Portland, Oregon was way outside of any of the normal ranges of behavior for temperature in that town. So, you know, I think we see that. Now, we still have to work through all the issues to get it squared away, but to say that it's not a serious problem and to say that the citizens of Half Moon Bay aren't concerned about it would seem to be missing some of the important evidence. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Bruce. Next speaker, please.
Next, we have Adrian Etherton.
Good evening, Adrian Etherton, Half Moon Bay resident. First, I want to congratulate Mayor Ruddick and Vice Mayor Penrose on your new appointments and thank outgoing Mayor Brownstone for his leadership this past difficult year. I hadn't planned to speak again on this matter, hoping that it would pass easily on consent, and it's not entirely clear to me why it isn't. So I thought I would just try to address some of the comments submitted in the agenda packet. One writer stated, 23 years isn't that far from now. I got a good giggle out of that. Think back to 23 years ago, 1998. How far technology has come and how much the pace of change is accelerating. Think about the climate 23 years ago and consider the pace of climate change, which is occurring almost exactly as scientists have been saying all along that it would, with the exception of the pace being much faster than expected. 23 years is not an abrupt change. Frankly, I hope it is fast enough. To those that say things like, I support climate action, just not this, they clearly do not understand the science, the outsized impact methane has on warming, or the policy options available to cities. This policy is one of, if not the most impactful actions a city council can take. Alternatives that these folks suggest tend to include things like getting cars off the road. I don't think we can mandate people not to come to Half Moon Bay, nor would it be in our community's best interests. And mandating the type of vehicles people buy isn't possible at a local level. Can you imagine the outrage folks would have for some of the other suggestions made, like forcing vegan diets or population control? I recognize that this has been a challenging process, and leading a change of this magnitude takes a lot of courage. Thank you for having the fortitude to get us to this point, and please, let's get this ordinance adopted tonight and begin 2022 with a focus on promoting and developing programs that can help everyone manage the transition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne. Next speaker.
Aisha Barrow, you have 2 minutes.
Evening once again. As you may imagine, my position on this is a little bit more nuanced. On one hand, I completely agree that we need to do something for climate change. The urgency is very striking, and there is no doubt in my mind that something needs to be done. On the other hand, I work in a job where I see on a daily basis the struggle that a lot of the community members have. So I have to reconcile those two facts together. And a lot of times in my job even, we provide grants and we have to make decisions between the long-term kind of goals and the short-term acute needs. Long-term goals being such as education, acute needs being such as survival and food pantry and homelessness and all of that. So I feel like this is the same issue that this council is wrestling with. And I was just wondering if there is a way, instead of using a stick, to use a carrot. So rather than saying like, you've got to do this, educating folks on the importance of the conversion, as well as providing incentives in terms of like tax relief or such as the things that are being provided on, electric cars, right? Incentives so that people could go forward and make those changes. So just something to consider, as it's not as easy of a decision or dilemma as it seems at face value. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Aisha.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Yeah. And the last speaker is David Ablogi.
Hey there. I was not going to speak to this topic. I was going to sit here in peace and just watch the rest of the meeting, but previous speaker addressed the idea that there were people out there who support what you're doing here and are sitting silently or just don't care. Look, change is hard, and especially change in a turbulent world when facts don't even exist anymore. I don't even know what a fact is anymore, because things that I think are facts are things that other people think are fiction. One of us can't be, or both of us can't be right. So all I'm going to offer here is thank you for preserving a world for my children to live in. and having the courage to pass this ordinance, which is, I'm pretty sure, what you're going to do. And hopefully this will be the first step in equity for everybody in Half Moon Bay and getting us off the fossil fuel conveyor belt that we are all currently on. And so thanks again. And hi, Mayor Reddick. I'm waving at you. You can't see me. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, David. Next speaker.
Francesca Savoli, you have 2 minutes.
Hi. Hi, this is the first time I speak. I don't have a speech prepared. I just want to express my opinion. I'm a resident of Half Moon Bay, and I am opposed to the electrification at this time. I think it's too rushed. If you really must do it, I'm hoping that you give the citizens more time to adapt to it. I totally agree with Aisha Barrow, just mentioned incentives. A lot of things have been accomplished by incentives, a lot of good things. And so the imposition that you would put on us seems excessive, too much for too little benefit, really. And that's it.
Thank you, Francesca. Next speaker, please.
Harry Quackenboss, you have 2 minutes. Harry, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry. I think the reaction to the question of does the community support climate change, if it doesn't include some statement about what the economic cost to individuals is, it really isn't a valid conversation to have. And so citing statistics about, well, we wanted to support climate change, but we didn't have any direct implication of what the costs were going to be is really high. One of the speakers made an assertion that there was no challenge to, there was a high level rebuttal that everybody knows we have to get off fossil fuels. That is not feasible in any kind of a time frame. In order to get off fossil fuels, unless we're going to adopt nuclear energy, which I personally think is the right thing, if we're not going to adopt nuclear, it requires cheap ways to store stuff, and that means batteries that just are not cost effective at this point in time. They may be in the future, they may not. There are a lot of interesting technologies. The statement that was made was that gas is more efficient for heating homes than electricity, and that's absolutely true, because you can transmit gas cheaply and efficiently through pipes much more efficiently than you can convert it to electricity in a large plant and transmit the electrical energy that way. And if you then store that energy in batteries, there's significant conversion loss to store it into the chemical batteries and get it back. So it is an absolute fact that the heating homes with gas, where the gas is already installed, is much more energy efficient than converting those homes to electric. That is an irrefutable fact. At 50,000 feet, I think everybody supports climate change, but China and India are continuing to build new plants. China is building coal plants. Whatever we do locally is not going to have that kind of an impact. It's a great symbol. It's a wonderful symbol, but the net effect is you're going to increase the cost because heating homes with gas is more efficient.
And your time is up. Thank you, Harry. Next speaker, please.
Tom Cabot, your minutes.
Thank you. My name is Tom Cabot. I'm a mechanical and environmental engineer living in Menlo Park, working on the climate problem on a kind of voluntary basis. I've worked in the utility industry quite a bit for Palo Alto's electric and gas utilities, and I have to say that electrification is much more efficient than burning gas in homes. The electrification uses an electric motor that that runs a refrigerant cycle that just moves heat. It moves it from the yard, and raises it to a new higher temperature and puts it into the house. And it doesn't take much energy to do that. It can use 1 unit of electricity and move a total of 3 or 4 units of heat into the house, whereas gas furnaces cannot get to 100%. So also, you've had a lot of people kind of throwing fear, uncertainty, and doubt into the discussion, saying that house prices will rise, and also saying that they'll fall. And those were on the same side. I don't think it makes sense to worry much about that. I think it makes sense to keep your eye on the ball and follow the path you're on to set an example of how a community can get the others moving by showing a workable ordinance that can help people do this transition. It is not abrupt. The scientists are telling us we have 10 years, 8 remaining, to really make dramatic changes. And that doesn't happen with business as usual. Other speakers asked, and I often hear my council members asking for voluntary measures. My study of the uptake of the voluntary incentive measures is it's about 1% of the burning out water heaters for these programs are replaced with heat pump water heaters using big voluntary incentives. So the voluntary incentives aren't enough. It makes sense to keep following your course. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I see no other hands raised. So I'm going to cut off public comment at this point and bring it back to the council. Does the council want to ask questions at this point? No. Okay, what I would like to do is take a straw poll of where council members are at this point. Leaning toward approval, reluctance, opposition. I'd like to find out where the council is at this point. I know we had a 3-2 vote. I'd like to revisit everyone's positions if you're willing to collaborate with me on that. Harvey.
Well, at the last meeting, I tried to explain why I think this is a question of public safety, and my position hasn't changed. Let me say a few things that I hope will influence the public and maybe the council. I have a PhD in physics. I've read the IPCC report. It's clear to me that man-caused climate change is a real threat to our planet, and that we have to get off fossil fuels. That's simple as that's the reality, and we have very little time to do it. So the people who claim that there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, they're similar in my mind to people who were saying that cigarette smoke, it wasn't clear that it caused cancer. It's clear to me that climate change is a threat to our planet, and we have to take it really seriously if we care about the future of our planet. So that's one thing. The other argument that says that electrification doesn't make a lot of sense because the electric power is generated from fossil fuels anyway is just not true. Certainly in San Mateo County, where the Peninsula Clean Energy buys fuel right now that's 100% green, that is renewable, completely renewable. And in a few years, it will be buying power that is renewable on a 24/7 basis. So the argument that using that sort of electricity is not will harm the environment, again, just isn't true. Now, I'm not a fool. I understand that electrifying appliances is expensive. But I don't think, honestly, we really have a choice. We must get off fossil fuel. The ordinance as written, I think, is intelligent in that sense that it only requires electrifying new construction where you have an investment anyway, and major remodels where you again have an investment that you're willing to put up with. So this fear that all of a sudden, if you have working gas-fired appliances, you're going to have to rip them out, just not true. The state is requiring that we be carbon neutral by 2045. How are we going to do that? Well, if we really need to head toward a natural gas-free environment so that the environment gets protected. So my position hasn't changed. I understand that it's not popular. I understand that if we had a referendum tomorrow, it would not pass. But that doesn't mean that the right thing to do is to get off fossil fuel. And this ordinance is the first step in doing that. These other arguments about, well, why wouldn't we do affordable housing and encourage solar power? Those are all sensible questions, but the real argument is not, we shouldn't have this what about attitude. We need to get off fossil fuel. And this ordinance is a step in that direction, and I heartily support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Council Member Rarbach, Council Member Brownstone, and then Council Member Jimenez.
Yeah, so my position right now is I am against this ordinance as written. And in fact, I think we should re-agendize it and make it right if we want to get people to support this. We continue to have, in fact, I think this isn't about reach codes, it's about overreaching. It's not about reaching, it's overreaching this particular ordinance as written right now. I think as elected officials, we are elected to serve the public interest. And clearly the majority of the public in Half Moon Bay is not interested in this ordinance as currently written. And Councilmember Rarbach just confirmed that. He said, yeah, I'm sure if we put that up, as a, for the vote, it wouldn't pass. So this isn't about just what we want. This is what the public wants. You said earlier, Councilmember Rarbach, very earlier in our session tonight, you said, you hope our elected officials and our new folks here give the city what it needs. But it's not just needs, it's also what it wants. I think it's dereliction of our duty to ignore what the majority of folks want. Even tonight, the speakers, out those against it, and everyone who lived in Half Moon Bay was against it. So, we did try and take out the burnout piece, and you're right, that's what people are very concerned with. All of a sudden, they have to immediately get rid of their gas appliances. And I agree with something that Paul Gregoriev wrote in one of his letters. He said, well, how do we trust that next year you just won't amend the ordinance so that people would have to replace burnout appliances? And in fact, in our last conversation about this, I believe Vice Mayor Penrose, you actually said that, and I hope next year we can remove that burnout ordinance, right? So why would people trust that we're not just going to turn right around by a majority vote and amend that ordinance? So I say until we really clear that up, and I don't think we have the equity safeguards in place. You know, if we want to talk about getting some grants to establish rebates for folks who can't afford these, you know, great. But the transition's too quick. That's what I'm hearing. And I also think it's a little bit insulting to say people don't really understand or don't support, you know, mitigating climate change. This is something that people feel very strongly about in terms of possible costs, especially for people on fixed incomes, especially for people who are renting, who the cost would have to be passed over to. And it's not for us to impose our value judgments in that way right now. So I say, let's give it time. Let's revisit this, re-agendize it. And no, I would not support the ordinance right now as currently written. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownstone. Councilmember Jimenez.
Thank you. I'm opposed to this ordinance, you know, and there's several things. You know, I've said it several times, you know, in meetings. I'm not really good with numbers, but we have a lot of community members, you know, that are actually present in this meeting that are really good with numbers. And there's two questions that I've asked, you know, about the cost to do this, you know, for community. And this one came from Mr. Paul Grigoriev. You know, he gave us an average cost, what it would cost to the city of Half Moon Bay to do this transition. With the math, the numbers that he did, it comes around about $100 million. The cost if we were to implement this ordinance to the citizens of Half Moon Bay, something that I'm against. You know, something that I will not force our community to spend that much money. You know, in making this change, this transition. The other question that I asked is actually, what is the, how Half Moon Bay will affect the environment if we were to actually approve this ordinance? Mr. John Doughty, you know, he was very clear, you know, that change is a drop in the bucket. He's actually right. There's another, you know, community member, very smart, check, you know, the emissions, you know, the green gas emissions for the county, for the state, you know, for the city of Half Moon Bay, in other cities in the county, and he compared them. So after looking at his numbers, it's actually a drop in the bucket. It's, you know, about 1%, you know, of the green gas emissions in the county. That's how much Half Moon Bay will influence. 1% to the cost of $100 million. I mean, I'm not good with numbers, but to me, that doesn't look right. You know, as it is right now, I've had conversations with community members. I read the letters, emails that we have received. Some of you have received the same emails. I recently had a conversation with a business owner downtown Half Moon Bay, you know, about her business and what it would cost her business, you know, and her husband's business. You know, they are calling the business to change, you know, to remove the gas, you know, appliances from their business. It will cost them at least $100,000 to do so. And that will be over a period of a long, you know, several months. So of course that will be money that will be losing, income that the business will be losing. So approving this ordinance would not only affect, a lot of community members, our seniors who live on a fixed income. That's not equitable. Also, we're going to be pushing, some of the businesses out of Half Moon Bay. Some of our local businesses will be closing their doors because they just need gas, for their business. To create an impact of 1%, in the county and less than 0.01% in the state is not feasible. It's just not feasible for me. There was an email that we received and I read it, but I don't remember, exactly the words. And this person quoted Gandhi, on the email. And it said about the influence, of the community. And I don't remember the quote. I don't want to interpret the quote. But it was us as elected officials. We follow our community. We are seen as leaders, but we follow our community. They are the leaders. They're the ones that help us make decisions. And it is true, Councilmember Rareback said it. Councilmember Brownstone said it. And other people have actually said it. If we were to actually put this on a ballot and to have the community vote on it, right now, as it sits, it will not pass. That means it's not feasible for a community, the cost. So what I do, I'm elected and I follow what my community says. They lead me. And so far today, I see and I stand against this ordinance.
Thank you, Councilmember Jimenez. Vice Mayor Penrose.
Yes, I am in complete agreement with Councilmember Burbach. I have not changed my opinion. Several things have been said tonight as if they were facts. Number one, I do not believe that if we put this on the ballot, that it wouldn't pass. I don't know the answer to that. Another thing that was said was that nobody from Half Moon Bay wants it. Well, that's not true. I've had as many emails from people from Half Moon Bay in favor of it and thanking me for supporting it. I think the argument about having the community lead us, it's an old argument. On the one hand, you could say you've been elected because of your values, because of your political stand. And because of that, you're responsible for supporting or not supporting something that you think is a good ordinance. I think this is an excellent ordinance. When we talk about $1 million in costs to the city, I don't know what we're talking about. No one has proposed that everybody has to go buy gas or electric right now. The ordinance is talking not about burnout, not about replacing something in your home with electric if you have gas currently. The ordinance is talking about new construction. It's talking about additions. It's talking about ADUs. So mixing that into the argument makes no sense to me. For those of us who want to stick our heads in the sand and say, well, gee, we've got until 2045 to worry about the state, that's absurd. We are seeing the effects of climate change every day. We are seeing it in the rains that we've had. People in the rest of the country are having a much harder time than we are. Would they pass an ordinance? They'd probably jump on passing an ordinance. We've been lucky, but we're still seeing it. I think that we are giving people enough time, personal homeowners that have gas appliances. We have said we're not going to ask you to replace them with electric. We've taken it out of the ordinance so that we can look to see what is the carrot that we can offer people. How can we develop incentives? What can we do to make it easier for folks? The home value argument is a ridiculous thing. I can't even go there. Makes no sense. Home prices on the coast are outrageous. This is not going to affect that one iota. It doesn't have anything to do with affordable housing. If you ask the majority of people in our town and give them decent information about what climate change is really actually doing and what the state is going to demand of us in 2045, if you educate them, I think they'd vote for it. So as a council member elected by the people of this city, I am in favor of the ordinance. I don't think it's strong enough, but I'm willing to go along with the concessions that we made at our last meeting. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Penrose. Councilmember Brownstone, you have your hand up again. Is that from the previous time, or do you have another remark?
No, this is a couple more comments. I wanted to reply to certain things that Vice Mayor Penrose said. You said, well, it's not a fact that you said, you get as many letters supporting, more letters supporting what you did. Thank you for it. Then, maybe we're getting different letters. But when we had our last meeting and almost 50 people called in, the vast majority were against it. And there was more folks. The folks who were for it, the majority of them didn't live in Half Moon Bay, and I was keeping that careful tally, and you remember that. So for you to say it's not a fact, I don't know what you're going, I really don't understand how you are assessing what the will of the people is here. And I feel plenty of people are very well educated about the implications of climate change. And, you said you made concessions, which I assume means, you got rid of the burnout piece. And yet, you said next year you're pretty much ready to get rid of that concession. So I don't understand how folks, and that was the major piece that most people were calling about. The burnout piece was what almost everyone is concerned about. But they need to trust that we wouldn't just turn around and say, well, you know what, in my opinion, I think we've figured out some incentives or whatever, and now it's okay to put it back in. I mean, I think we've created this trust gap that's existing out there that we wouldn't just turn around and, you'll get your 3 out of 5 votes and turn around and put it right back in there next year. So, so there's a trust issue here. And I think pieces need to be more carefully written. I think there's pieces regarding restaurants that we might want to take another look at and make sure there's no ambiguity and guarantee folks that they will not, for the foreseeable future, have to replace appliances that burn out. I think that's what people want to hear from us. And without that, I can't see supporting this. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Penrose. You're muted, Vice Mayor.
I think that it is very easy to coordinate a group of people to come to oppose something. It is a lot easier to get people to come out and say, hey, I'm against this because it's going to personally affect them, they think. It's going to cost them money. I don't know what their reasoning is. They don't believe in climate change. I'm not sure. It's a lot harder to get people who think this is a good idea to come out and support it. People are busy. People have lives. They don't necessarily follow everything we do on council. So I disagree with that argument that 80% of some 50 people that happened to show up at the council meeting were against it. I think that's absurd. When I said that I'm looking forward to next year, when we will reevaluate the burnout provision, I said that and I supported not putting the burnout in because I do believe that we will be having federal and state subsidies to make it easier and cheaper for people to electrify and to replace their furnaces. I think technology is moving in the right direction. Batteries are getting better. There is all sorts of things that are going to be coming up on the horizon that we don't see right now. And so I think keeping the burnout thing on the burner, so to speak, until we know what these incentives are and how we can help folks make a reasonable conversion makes total sense to me. So I'm in favor of not including it in this ordinance and reevaluating it in a year. And in a year, if we don't see that there are any incentives that make it possible and it's still expensive, too expensive for folks to do it, then I'll be willing to hold off another year. And then we'll look at it again. But in terms of what this ordinance does tonight, it doesn't include burnout. We are not hurting folks. So I am in favor of it.
Councilmember Jimenez.
Thank you. Couple different things. Technology, it is advancing. You know, I mean, there's no question about it. It's very different. I'm gonna say about what it was 23 years ago. But we still not there yet. You know, the batteries, the system we have, they're not efficient. You know, they're not cost efficient. So as there's two things, we could leave it up to our community members to actually make the transition on their own. Let them be, you know, as they see fit into their budget, as the state gives more incentives, maybe even, you know, as, you know, Half Moon Bay hires, you know, contracts somebody to write, I know, grants that will actually can help our community members one at a time, you know, to make this transition, you know, help them with the cost. You know, there are several things that we could do. Aisha, you know, mentioned, you know, let's use the carrot and not the stick. Okay, let's give them an opportunity. Let's find the money. You know, it's not going to be cheap. You know, we know that it could cost, I mean, some homes about $70,000 to make the transition. And if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Right? We could do that. Leave it on their own time. The other thing we could do, you know, why not we leave it up to the community, you know, to make a decision and put it on the ballot. In the meantime, we can actually educate the community about what we are doing. You know, the education, it could come, how it could benefit, you know, the environment, to cap, you know, the gas lines in our community, educate about PG&E, you know, what's PG&E doing, that making sure that our community is safe, that we're not gonna be losing power every other week. So education plays a big part. So no, next, the ballot is in November. So we have about, you know, 11 months to educate our community we want to put on the ballot, you know, and let the community make the decision. What do we have to offer on the initiative? I mean, what are the incentives that we have? The county, the city, the state, federal. So maybe by then, you know, things would be better. But right now, as it sits, you know, I'm just against this, you know, the initiative. I think we can do more than that. I think, you know, there's more education. I mean, even educating myself. And, you know, then, I mean, as far as I see the numbers, you know, they're not feasible. So, I mean, I'm against it. I leave it up to the community to make their own decision.
Councilmember Brownstone. Those of you, when you're done, if you could lower your hands, that'd be great. Councilmember Brownstone, then Vice Mayor Penrose.
So first I want to address this point about, well, you know, it's just so much easier to organize people to vote against something, and that you totally dismiss, you know, kind of dismiss it. Oh, 50 people. I mean, wow. Is that insulting to the electorate? One of the things I've loved about Zoom meetings is we have increased the participation of participatory democracy in this city. It is amazing how many more people we have participating. I didn't organize it.
Councilmember Brownstone, yeah. Who's ever not muted, could you please mute yourself? We can hear children in the background, voices in the background. Please mute yourself. Robert, proceed.
Okay. So, and boy, there's been plenty of issues where people have organized for something. They organized to have spend organized to encourage us to vote for $350,000 to support Abundant Grace in buying their building. Maybe it's 300,000, I don't remember. But there's plenty of issues that people are organized to vote for something. So I completely disagree with the premise you made. And it is an insult to everyone who participates and states their peace of mind. You may disagree with it, but that's, I'm very shocked that you actually said that. And yeah, you know, we could move now to put this on a ballot. If you're so sure that it would win, then great. Let's put it on the ballot now. If you're so sure of that, Vice Mayor Penrose, I'm happy to support a motion to do that. So.
Vice Mayor Penrose, and then I'm going to comment myself, and then we can have more debate after I make my remarks. So Vice Mayor Penrose. You're muted, Vice Mayor.
I have never insulted the public. I do not insult the public. I read every email I get. I meet with anyone who wants to meet with me. I speak on the phone with anyone who wants to speak with me. So I'm sorry, I can't be accused of insulting the public. What I said was your sample was very small. And the point I made about organizing against something, we all know how that works in the city, and we all know how the real estate organization gets behind things that they think are going to hurt them, and they can bring out 50 people. I'm not going to reiterate that, but I do want to address what Councilmember Jimenez has been saying. There is no current cost to current homeowners with this ordinance. None. Zero. The ordinance says that if you want to build a new home, you make it electric. The ordinance says if you want to put an addition on your home, it needs to be electric. None of that costs you anything if you don't do those things. The $70,000 figure is a figment. It means nothing. It's not part of the argument. The ordinance has already said that we are not asking people to replace existing appliances with gas. That's not in the ordinance. So although I appreciate your sentiment, I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Okay. So, I have spent the last couple of weeks doing very deep dives into the whole issue, reading investment reports, industry analyses, political stuff, looking at state policy. So my thinking has changed somewhat. I still believe that, given the state's policy drive to decarbonize by 2045, as long as that's state policy, we have to address it. We're a general law city, we're an agent of the state. We're going to address it. That's what we have. The best policy information right now is 2045. Some people are talking about tightening it even further. So the state's greenhouse gas goals is driving a lot of what's happening. And rightly so. As mentioned at the previous meeting, based on what I know, being fully engaged in the science and my day job, if we want to avoid the worst effects of climate change, rendering the earth uninhabitable, we have to decarbonize. And that means basically leaving fossil fuels in the ground, because every little bit of greenhouse gas emissions has a cumulative impact. So our share might be 1% of the county or whatever it is, but any greenhouse gas emissions adds to the increases in the temperature. There's no question about that. Where everybody seems to be is that new construction's a no-brainer, very cost effective with new construction. Makes absolute sense. The state currently is prioritizing its EV network is the first piece of its decarbonization program. The state hasn't done a whole lot addressing emissions from the built environment. There's been movement on that. The thinking is starting to gel. There is going to have to be a lot of incentives around it because of the cost of retrofitting buildings, residential and non-residential. So my thinking is, and I also want to add that I'm concerned about the trust issue in the community. Frankly, the people contacting me are only talking about the negatives, and I'm hearing from a lot of it. And it also concerns me that our vote on something that's so important as this is split 3-2. And everybody seems to be fast in their positions. So where I'm coming down at this point is sort of like, splitting a baby. Because electrifying with new construction is kind of a no-brainer. It's economical, it's cost effective. I would like us to separate that piece out and bring it back in January. One of the reasons I'm not prepared to approve this tonight is I've also had conversations with nursery people and looked into their comments about the difficulty of electrifying, the greenhouse industry. And it's problematic. Industry and agriculture, electrifying those sectors is problematic. It's going to take longer. And plus, they're a smaller piece. So I was going to recommend taking out agriculture. I talked to Catherine. That requires it to come back to a meeting in January in any case. So I'd like to bring back electrifying new construction as a separate ordinance. Then I'd like to spend more time looking at our policies, rolling out policy for the built environment as part of our deliberations on our climate action plan. The thinking was, and there's some merit to it, we know we have to do it, so we can do it now ahead of having the actual climate action plan. But I actually think that having the community look at the climate action plan and looking at, modifying the built environment and what that means as part of a comprehensive plan can make more sense for people, right? They're seeing the bigger picture. And we're having time to really dig deeper on what's a sensible rollout? How do we make the least impact but still, achieve decarbonization? It seemed to me our discussion on, 2027 for some and 2023 for, it seemed somewhat arbitrary looking at it in hindsight. So I'd rather have a more detailed discussion as part of the climate action plan. What's sensible? Because, one of the reasons the state is prioritizing new construction and EVs is because there are grid issues. And we're not going to be able to have independent generation in our community completely because of the differences between winter and summer and, fog belt and, rural and all that stuff. You basically have to have a larger transmission grid, and that has to accommodate decarbonization. So that's why they're looking at EVs first, to see what sort of impact, that will have and how much modification of the grid and investment in the grid is going to take. So I would like to postpone the discussion on rollout of modifications to existing residential and non-residential structures and lump that in with our deliberations over the climate action. I want to say, Veronica and John have done a fabulous job, and I know they're doing a fabulous job in the climate action plan. The climate action plan has had incredible amounts of outreach. This has been going on for a while, and we've had grants to do the outreach. Our discussion on this ordinance has been lengthy as well. We've had several meetings. But the issue of actually changing our existing homes and businesses, I think, just requires more attention. And I talked to Senator Becker, and he's going to be looking in the current or the upcoming legislative session because we're facing another bull year in Sacramento, big budget surplus of incentives for this kind of a program. I noticed that, Marin County has Electrify Marin County. It's a program. People looked at all the pieces together. It made sense, reduced opposition. That's something I think, we want to consider. The federal government has fallen by the wayside, it appears. Unfortunately, so it's going to be, basically the individual states and regions who are going to be tackling it according to their, their own policy goals. So that's what I'm proposing. I'd like to get feedback on the idea. I'm not, backtracking on the need to, decarbonize our built environment, but I want to do it in a way that makes sense to the community, that talks about costs and incentives at the same time so people can wrap their arms around it. So I think it needs more work. And I'll start with Councilmember Rarbach.
I'm disappointed in what you just said, Debbie. the ordinance is really a positive step. What you've been talking about, the as-built environment, only has to do with major changes to existing structures where you're going to have to spend a lot anyway. It worries me that when we start to piece this off and say only new construction, it's somewhat what happened, unfortunately, to the Build Back Better Act federally. We need to take action. We need to be leaders. I don't think there's anything that is financially destructive in this existing ordinance. And I'm really disappointed that we don't go forward with it. I thought it was well thought out. We removed the burnout provisions because that was really a financial impact. But the ordinance as written, I think is a good one. I think it makes sense for decarbonization, and I still support it strongly.
Harvey, we're still talking about, the coming year. We're not talking about postponing it 5 years or whatever. We're talking about doing it as part of the climate action plan, which we'll be discussing sometime in late spring probably. So I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm saying that there seems to be no disagreement about new construction. Get that out of the way separately. Focus on the climate action plan with a program for the built environment and use it to build communication, understanding, trust, and buy-in. So I'm just talking about a somewhat slower process. The other cities in the county have only adopted it for new construction. I know you want to be a leader. We're on the same page about what has to be done. But I think my proposal is better for the community this time. As I said, I'm not going to support the current one with agriculture in it in any case. So that has to be looked at very closely.
So you're saying that in no case should agriculture electrify? Is that what I hear you saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it has to be looked at closely. It's not. If we're gonna have a rollout, we're not gonna have. Okay, we're gonna do everything right now. But I will say this: people should not wait, and the reason is incentives are for early adopters, right? The more people, buy into it, the incentives start disappearing or not making much sense. So, and plus, you don't want to wait until the last minute because then you really overload the grid. You have to send market signals for investment to keep it moving forward. So I'm totally against waiting a long time to deal with this, and I want to, I want to make it clear to people that, we're in the middle of this new industrial revolution. We have a very set goal by the state. Don't wait to consider, electrifying your home. You have to do it when the getting is good, and we can't overload the grid. So we have to, as I said before, you want to smooth out the transition. So I'm saying, and because, new construction might be imminent, I want to attack new construction right away. So I want to get that done in January. I want to wait for this other piece as part of the climate action plan, which will be this year, right? So we're only 3 months or so before it coming to us. So that's what I'm trying to make a constructive alternative here that can get some buy-in from my fellows. Vice Mayor Penrose.
I can support that as long as we deal with the new construction piece in January and not in the spring. And when I say new construction, I mean additions, ADUs, any new construction.
But not major remodels, so. No, we're going to have to look at
major remodels, any new construction, major remodel, minor remodel, you know, whatever is in the ordinance as it is right now about remodeling and about additions and about new construction. I'm in favor of doing that. If we do it in January, I can wait till January.
I'm recommending only new standalone residential and non-residential construction.
Well,
I'm not in favor. Still want to look at the remodel piece as part of the climate action plan.
I'm not in favor of that.
So I want a solid justification for whether it's 750 or 500. You know, I want to, you know, document and justify that. Councilmember Brownstone, then Councilmember Rarbach.
Yeah, I can support what Mayor Ruddick is proposing. I would like to see this bifurcated. Let's go, you know, first approve all new standalone construction. I think we have a lot of support for that. I'd like to bring what I consider to be the majority of the public along with us, educate them, and figure out what the other pieces are to incentivize more behavior. I think most of the public is very well aware that the polar ice caps are melting as we speak. So they're aware of all the climate change that we are facing, impending disaster as a planet. But I want to bring everyone along with us in terms of what they feel they're willing, how quickly they're willing to move. And it's always been around the transition. And there's plenty to read about, you know, how do you transition this and bring everybody aboard. So yeah, I would go along with what Mayor Ruddick is proposing.
You know, one thing we could do is the council could direct the mayor and the vice mayor to work with staff, you know, taking a look at the existing ordinances in the county relating to new construction, and see what's in them, and, you know, so that we have something to bring to you the second meeting in January, you know. If that works for staff too. Councilmember Rarbach.
I agree with Vice Mayor Penrose. I don't see any reason why we don't take the leadership about remodeling, which apparently that seems to be the only hang up at this point between the three of us who are more or less in favor. The argument that it would be a financial imposition, I don't think makes a lot of sense when you're talking about major and even minor remodels. If you're going to spend that sort of money, that you need to do that, you might as well from the beginning expect to be 100% electrical. So I would really like us to pass this ordinance tonight. I have no objection to more education. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I think we need to put our foot in the sand and say, this must, we must get off fossil fuels. This step is important and doable and does not impose an undue burden on our community. That's where I stood earlier, and I still stand there now. So I hope we can get some support for this existing ordinance. I think it's a good one.
Thank you, Harvey. Councilmember Jimenez.
I completely agree with you, Mayor Ruddick, you know, about what you're proposing today. And for, you know, things that I've actually learned in the last couple of years, you know, that I've heard is happening in our community, in the county, you know, County of San Mateo, you know, the peninsula. Things are going to be very different in, you know, 5 to 10 years. very different. Unfortunately, Half Moon Bay, we're not gonna be much of that change because of our location. But in the peninsula, things are gonna be changing. But I think for now, education, I think, like one thing you were very clear, we wanna get there and we wanna get there, all together. So I do agree with you and Councilmember Brownstone. So that's where, where I stand. New construction, stand alone, and educating our community about the changes, on our environment. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the education of our community or how we can make a difference.
Vice Mayor Penrose, if you could just hold off a second, I'd like to hear from staff. Mr. Dowdy and Veronica there, get your feedback on this discussion, how it might impact, say, a separate new construction ordinance, any timing relating to January. Any thoughts you have on the discussion so far and my proposal?
I think I have to remind the January meeting, there's only one in January, so we're looking at the 19th. And while I think it's pretty easy to pick that piece apart and to address that, I would suggest the first meeting in February realistically to come back with an introduction or consideration introduction of the ordinance dealing with new construction. We still need to actually, separate those items out and deal with that. I think it's also common knowledge that Veronica is going to be having a little boy soon, and so we're going to be having to pick up that work while she is on leave, and so that would give us just a couple of extra weeks to move that forward. It still does not, stop the work from moving along. What we can do in her absence on the climate action plan as well. So I think that's a realistic time frame for us.
And just a reminder that the one meeting in January, the January 19th meeting, is primarily devoted to redistricting, and we really don't want to take away from that important discussion. That's going to be the first opportunity for the council to see maps that were produced by the commission that you formed. So I would agree with Mr. Dowdy that we would need until February 1st.
Vice Mayor Penrose, you had a comment?
No, I had a question. I don't understand separating out additions and remodels. I don't get that piece, and it seems to me that is new construction. It is new construction where there is a chance to electrify. It is new construction which a homeowner has already decided to invest in. And if it's going to cost a little bit more to do it electrically than it is with gas, I don't understand the reason for separating it out.
If Mayor, would you like?
Yeah, I'm just going to say one reason is there still is the issue of how is that rolled out? Does that become effective immediately? Are we giving people some notice and making it 2023 or 2024? So I had lumped it in with the rollout question, but I'm happy to hear from City Manager Bob Nisbet. Were you having a comment there?
I guess my comment was just going to be on how it's more so not advocating one way or the other, but just how it's currently defined. So I don't know if that's helpful to Councilmember Penrose, but remodel by definition is not defined as new construction. New construction is standalone, the word that a couple of you have used. And I think that's just important to distinguish. Whether you're for it or against it, that's the debate you're having. But maybe the best example to distinguish the two is not a residential, but a commercial. And I guess the one that comes to my head is the Pasta Moon. They went into an existing building. So they were not building a new restaurant. So when they went in and remodeled that building, that was a remodel. So I'm just clarifying the definitions, and I don't know if that's helpful or not.
If I could say this, the ordinance today does not define new construction as including remodel. There is nothing that precludes, and some of the ordinances that are out there have identified remodels as part of the new construction definition. That is not what we chose to do, in part because the ordinance started with the burnout and evolved around through various policy decisions. And so it just never started with even that conversation that was there. We could certainly come back in February with an ordinance that includes options and language to discuss, but
my point was not to get a definition of what a remodel was. My point was that when someone decides they're going to spend money to build something, that we should not be encouraging them to put in gas.
My thinking is that there are other implications of treating things as new construction or remodels, right? There's probably, issues of tax and legal code. I'm guessing that's a question for Catherine. It might be problematic to define a certain kind of remodel as new construction for other reasons than we're talking about.
I'm not talking about defining it as new construction. I'm saying alongside of new construction. I said it's a type of construction. It is new construction. Defining it that way, I don't care how we define it. I'm talking about an ordinance which includes it.
I'm not disagreeing with you that we have to deal with, major remodels at all. We're going to have to, apply policy to major remodels. What I'm trying to do is separate out in people's minds what it is we're addressing. Okay. Right now, they're going to address new construction. Everything else is going to be looked at as part of our discussion around the climate action plan, as part of a more comprehensive, program. I just think it's cleaner that way for people. It's more understandable. People, given the stresses of everything that's going on and their work and whatever, people are it's just not going into people. They're not understanding, the distinctions that, we're making in our current ordinance. So I'm not disagreeing with you that we have to tackle it. I'm trying to create a clearer, cleaner process here. Councilmember Brownstone.
A clarification question just to make sure I understand. And John, maybe you can help me out. Just I want to make sure. Under the current ordinance, a major remodel is anything over 500 square feet, correct?
That's correct.
So if it's over 500 feet, then you have to, I want to make sure I understand, you have to electrify the whole house. Whereas if it's a minor remodel, just the appliances or whatever within the 500 feet. Am I understanding that correctly? Or
that's the basic scenario you're looking at.
Got it. So, yeah, I mean, I've always had some problems with that. Going back to what Vice Mayor Penrose is saying, it is about cost. So you're saying, if you're going to spend money on a remodel and all of a sudden you want 525 feet and you're saying, so, you spend a little more money and electrify the whole house. That could be a lot more money. So, I mean, I think those are some of the issues that people are concerned about. And that's what we're getting a lot of feedback on. And numbers being thrown all over the place. And you're right, there are some people from certain interest groups throwing out crazy numbers of expenses. But some of it was still, fairly expensive. And so, there's that issue. Saying just under 500 square feet, then if you go over. So I am not happy, with the ordinance in that sense. I would like to really do what Mayor Ruddick is saying, just really separate those pieces out and make sure we're on the same page and get clarity, for the public on that, including costs, because I think that's what one of the major pushbacks was. How much is this stuff really going to cost?
Oh, I just want to reiterate, not backtracking on doing this kind of an ordinance. I'm trying to make it a cleaner, more understandable process that increases community buy-in. It's going to be critical.
I think we understand where the consensus sort of is landing out there. What we've committed to is that we can be back first meeting in February, and we can have a conversation about this and see where it lands. I guess it's the best we can sort of offer to you. I will say this, that new construction, residential new construction, is the simplest path, and the one that virtually all the other jurisdictions in this county have gone with. They have not touched commercial for the most part, and they have not touched the remodels for the most part. So this is the path of least resistance in terms of where the other jurisdictions have found. And from that perspective, this seems like a logical and reasonable first approach to moving this forward. Again, we have reiterated over the last year our concerns about getting in front of this with the electrification ordinance in front of the climate action plan. We did not have a chance to really talk about what the inventory was about. We're not able to get out into the community and really talk about the importance of this, and to get a consensus of where people really are. And all I can say is I think that the answer is there are people in favor of it and there are people against it. And I'm not sure that those folks have the best information to be able to make a decision on whether they should or shouldn't be in favor of this. And I think the climate action plan process provides us that opportunity and a pathway to get to perhaps adjustments and something more perhaps than just the new construction side of this equation.
Councilmember Arbach.
John, are you saying that what the direction you think you've got is not to include new construction that's commercial in this February?
I did not hear that, Councilmember. I did not hear that. I heard new construction being considered both commercial and residential.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me summarize maybe, and I do think a motion probably would be helpful, but the summary of what I heard from Mayor Ruddick was to bring back an ordinance, take out all the remodel and bring back one that's new construction, both for residential and commercial, and also provide an exemption for agriculture. So as we've done in the past, when we bring that back, we'll make it very clear what has been changed. We'll bring back a red line so that if we didn't get it quite right, you can certainly see what was done. But those were the two things I heard. And I think John and that direction's clear.
The existing ordinance says that agriculture or greenhouses are exempt until 2030.
2030.
you're proposing on this draft ordinance to make it an absolute exemption. Is that what I understand?
For the time being, we need to, suss out the issues around agriculture and industry during the climate action plan. So I was saying, don't even, just exempt it for the time being.
And I don't want to throw, if I could, Mayor, I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into the conversation. There was if you recall, going back 3 meetings ago, there was a clear consensus, I thought, driven that we would basically look at going to no gas at 2045, meaning that basically any and all exemptions we talk about would expire in 2045. So that's something that would be, we would need some clarity on, because rather than it just being a generic, what we have looked at is under the current ordinance, every exemption expires in 2045 because everything electrifies at 2045. So our assumption would be that agriculture would continue to be exempt until 2045, and any other exemptions that would be done, unless the council pulls back from the 2045 electrification goal. And
or unless we're able to, get good information that makes sense in terms of when we sunset gas with agriculture, right? So I'm not saying exempt it forever. I mean, I want to continue to look at it. And, I've had a conversation, for instance, with Rocket Farms, and they said, we totally get the state's 45 deadline. We're going to comply with it. Okay. The technology for greenhouses isn't good right now. We don't know, what it means. We don't know how much it's going to cost us. Just exempt us for the time being, right?
We get that.
I'd like to make a motion then.
Let me interrupt.
Okay.
Are we proposing that the capping of all natural gas lines in 2045 be part of what comes back to us early February? Is that correct? I want to get clarification there.
We didn't hear any direction to change that provision, so we would leave that the same unless directed otherwise.
Well, I'm wondering if there's not, a better way to frame it though, like use the state's, terminology, decarbonize by 2045, as opposed to decommission gas lines. It may be that the state has a different idea at some point about the fuel mix. I don't know. So I'm just saying maybe use the same terminology as the state does right now. They're talking about, when legislators talk about it, the governor talks about it, they talk about decarbonizing. They don't talk about shutting down natural gas.
Can I just say this? The legislature is double talking, frankly, and we really need to have specifics as to what it means. And so I'm going to push back on that simply because it means nothing if it means nothing. And so there is something to be said about what that is. We can certainly look at what the terminology is, but I think what we're getting, frankly, from Sacramento is some double talk about what decarbonization means. Simply,
and you're hearing from the federal government, get rid of methane. And that means natural gas. So, all right, I'm fine.
It's difficult, but we'll work on it.
Peter Brownstone?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with bringing back this ordinance in February, as described by Mayor Ruddock, with the instructions as understood, just outlined by City Manager Nisbet, to bring it back to focusing on electrification for new construction, residential and commercial, separate out and further define the pieces regarding everything, well, agriculture and
the wastewater treatment plant too.
Wastewater treatment plant and anything regarding major or minor construction on existing homes.
Second.
Is that sufficiently clear to staff, that motion?
Don?
Okay.
I'm good.
Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose,
No.
Mayor Reddick,
Yes.
motion carries.
Should we be formulating a motion about, or do we need a motion to direct staff to bring back the discussion of decarbonizing the built environment as part of the climate action plan, or is that not necessary? Would you recommend that or not?
I don't think we need a motion. You can certainly, at the point where this ordinance gets to a second reading, you can provide any further direction at that point. But I think we're clear.
I'm fine. I think we're good.
And we can discuss it further during priority setting as well.
Yeah.
Is everybody good with that? Harvey?
I just want to clarify that the ordinance that staff is going to bring back will include the capping of gas lines by 2045. Is that correct?
We were going to leave that unchanged.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Well, this has been a rigorous discussion. We want to make sure that when we get back to the climate action plan, that there's plenty of outreach around that. And again, I want to thank Veronica. I know Veronica is participating in a panel discussion, an online panel discussion that I saw noticed sometimes in mid-January. She's becoming a star, our star. Thank you to John and everyone. Your forbearance is much appreciated. And I hope the community appreciates that, you know, the council does listen. You know, we do our homework on these big issues. It's kind of iterative. There's adaptive management. It's not always, democracy is not always clean and clear, but hopefully we're in the right spot. So, would anybody like just a short 5-minute break, or do you want to just move on to the next item before adjourning? Anybody? Okay, let's just.
I will also say this, although Ms. Papendick from the county has been with us there, and I hate to do this, but I will say there is no horribly, critical time crunch on this, and that if it is desired, we could certainly push this off, and I'll apologize to Hillary, or we can do this pretty quickly.
Well, it is the last meeting of the year, John. How much time do you think it's going to take?
We can do it in 10 minutes.
You're muted, Madam Mayor.
Let's just get her done.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're moving on to item 3A.
So thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I'm pleased to have with us Hillary Papendick from Sustainability San Mateo County. And she is going to present to you a brief overview of the South County portion of the sea level and sea rise assessment and vulnerability assessment work that they've been working on. We realized in the process that we had not ever brought this to you as the council, and this was released a few months ago, and felt it was important to do this. And then there's a second piece of this, which is to discuss sort of the ocean colony area. And I'll just turn this over right now to Hillary, and then I'll take just a couple of minutes to talk about the ocean colony piece of this equation.
Slide. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and members of the public. I'm Hillary Papendick, as Mr. Dowdy said, and I'm the Climate Change Program Manager for the Office of Sustainability. And I'm going to give a brief overview of the results of our South Coast Sea Level Rise Vulnerability Assessment and Adaptation Plan. So next slide. So this study builds off of our 2018 sea level rise vulnerability assessment, which included the Bayside and the coast side Half Moon Bay North. But there was a data gap in our sea level rise modeling that we weren't able to include the southern part of Half Moon Bay to the county border. So now we're completing that part of the study. Next slide. So I'll go into a little bit about what we learned. And because of the lack of modeling for the 2018 study, there was just one small portion of Half Moon Bay that wasn't included in the 2018 study. So I included this first slide showing the section of Half Moon Bay that is in the South Coast Vulnerability Assessment. So it's the Ocean Colony area. And this shows some of the impacts from 5 feet of sea level rise with a 1% annual chance storm, which is a big storm. And so the Ritz-Carlton does become affected by erosion, and then the California Coastal Trail is affected as well. Next slide. And then now I can go over some of the other findings for the rest of the coast. There's about 120 structures and residences at risk, mostly due to erosion. You can see these written out here. There's vulnerable communities such as Pescadero, Martins Beach, and Tanitas Creek, and then 15 miles of trails and some cultural artifacts at risk in Año Nuevo State Park. And next, I'm sure everyone is aware that Highway 1 is one of the major assets at risk. It's the main critical transportation route connecting the coast. So there's several miles of Highway 1 that could be affected by erosion, especially around Bean Hollow, Pescadero Point, and Pompanillo Beach. And Pescadero Creek Road is the most affected county road, mostly by estuary flooding, and there's about 11 parking lots maintained by state parks that are also at risk. And in terms of agriculture, there's about 550 acres of potentially vulnerable agricultural land at risk from erosion, and 120 acres of planted fields, mostly low-lying areas east of Pescadero Marsh. Next slide. So the next phase of our study includes identifying adaptation solutions to prepare for these impacts, analyzing costs of different adaptation approaches, and defining which areas to prioritize. Excuse me. We held a meeting in July to discuss our draft maps and get some input for the adaptation portion. And we now have a draft report that we're working on, and we plan to release the report for public review in 2022. And we'll have additional opportunities for public engagement, community engagement. And we've been working closely with Half Moon Bay staff through developing this report. So next slide. So that's all I have. We have information on our website, seechangesmc.org, about the study, the maps, and about information on upcoming community meetings will be there as well. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Hillary. And thank you for coming and spending part of your evening with us. With that in mind, when we received presentation by the county and by their consultant team, Integral Consultants, it pointed to us a need to perhaps dive a little deeper into the Ocean Colony area and look at what in fact is moving and what isn't moving in that area, frankly, and how do we kind of proceed with this. Obviously, the Ocean Colony Partners, the golf course itself, is an extremely important piece of our coastal access, our coastal recreation, and frankly, financially, it's important. The Ritz-Carlton accounts for a significant amount of transient occupancy tax to this community. Those taxes and sales tax and other revenues generated from that facility provide much of the benefits that this community enjoys in terms of its parks, streets, and public facilities and services that you as council budget for annually. And as such, we felt that it was desirable to start to look at a little bit deeper dive into this. The mayor also spoken at length about the need to get projects ready for grants and get them grant ready and to be able to look for grant opportunities. And again, part of this moving forward and going with phase one that the staff initiated with Integral was to, again, get us closer to the point of being able to look at this in more detail as a grant-ready project, as we talk to One Shoreline, as we talk to other agencies, as we talk to the feds, the state, and everyone else around that. So that was kind of the impetus for this. And again, we broke down into phase one, which was clearly looking at more the economics side of this and looking at what's happening and piecing that together. Phase two was scoped out to allow us to look at actually the options and potential alternatives for dealing with adaptation. And if you recall, our climate action plan is also a climate action and adaptation plan. And frankly, we have never budgeted for nor hired consultants to be able to look at the adaptation piece. So in our minds, this provides a logical place to at least start with and move our way kind of down the line at looking at the adaptation piece. Certainly the LCP was an important piece to this. A lot of pieces have come together with this. So that's the basis for why we're here. We wanted to let you know that we had moved into a phase one. And tonight, what we were suggesting is and asking for was direction as to whether you wished to invest additional funding toward the phase two portion of this project. And if so, then we would come back at the 19th with the consent calendar item to include an additional $25,000 for that phase two project. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Do any council members have questions for Hillary Papendick or for staff? Vice Mayor Penrose?
Yes. I'm wondering, phase two is going to be including some of the Ocean Colony and Ritz-Carlton.
Phase one and phase two are entirely the Ocean Colony area.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how much the county and how much the Ritz-Carlton and the golf course are contributing to this study.
Hillary may be able to answer in terms of where the county and the investment they've made as part of the South County project, that they're not participating in this expanded work of Integral, but they have expended monies as part of their phase two project. And maybe she may have an idea on that. At this point, neither Ocean Colony or the Ritz-Carlton have committed funding to this. We have spoke to them. They're aware of our efforts. They understand the importance of this issue, but at this point, they have not committed. But they will be participating if we move forward and providing information and details that are necessary to basically formulate the financial information that's necessary. Again, their investment and their commitment is going to be significant over time. And frankly, from staff's perspective, this is a very small amount of money to at least get the ball rolling and starting the conversation. But we understand that, and we had hoped that they would both agree to financially support. At this point, they have not. Doesn't mean that we can't continue to press.
Thank you.
Hillary, did you want to respond to that question?
Yes. The county has funded the South Coast Sea Level Rise Study and Adaptation Solution Study with general fund. It's about $200,000 or so. And as Mr. Dowdy mentioned, we're contracted with Integral to prepare the study. And we're not contributing funds for this targeted study for Ritz-Carlton and Ocean Colony.
Thank you.
I just want to comment about how lucky, we are to have the San Mateo County Office of Sustainability. They are just doing leading edge work on sea level rise and climate change, and their staff has grown, top talent. I'm just so grateful that you're involved here on the coast side.
Agreed.
And I also want to say that we couldn't do better than Dr. Dave Ravel, doing the vulnerability piece of this. I just know of him through, my work at Coastal Conservancy. I'm really grateful that he's part of the team. So can't do better than that.
And Dr. Ravel is in the audience there with tonight, but monitoring. And if there was any questions, he was certainly available to answer those. But he was primarily here just to monitor.
There probably will become a time for more questions once we have more data. And
that was our.
I agree with John that this is a real important piece for us. The Ritz is how much of our city budget?
Well, it's our number one TOT, and it's also our number one property tax.
Right. So it's going to be very important that we move. We're running out of time there too, as you saw from the photos. The erosion is huge, and the old pylons from the previous structure, are exposed down, by the beach. It's not good. So, this has got to be a priority project for us. And I'm guessing, because of the coastal access issues, there'll be some level of grant funding that we can apply to it. But, certainly a priority project, and staff has done a good job of getting us on track here. So. Do we have a motion for approval here? Let's see what the motion is. It's
yeah, I'll make a motion. I move that we direct.
Recommendation.
Yeah, I move that we direct staff to return to the council on January 19th with an amendment to the professional services agreement with Integral Consulting, Inc. and funding proposal for phase 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose,
Yes.
Mayor Reddick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hillary.
Do we have any commission and committee updates?
Madam Mayor, given the late hour, we do not.
Okay, I will mention as a city council member report that I was reappointed by CCAG to the San Mateo County Flood and Sea Level Rise Resiliency District, also known as One Shoreline. I'm only going to talk One Shoreline from here on out, folks. I'm not going to say the full. I will be our coastal rep now for 4 years. Vice Mayor Penrose, do you have a question? You have your hand raised. All right, so let's see. Okay. Unless anybody has anything else, I'll adjourn this meeting, but I first want to say happy holidays and happy New Year's to all of you. Please stay safe and healthy, you and yours, your loved ones. It's a jungle out there. Come back next month and be all good, okay?
Same.
Happy holidays, everybody. And
Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
Good night.
Bye.